Working, Marin and Dean and Josh and Brian especially have been working really hard to implement the modeling for Waterworth, and we're excited to talk about that today. It's really going to help us a lot in understanding why we need to set the rates where we need to and kind of projecting out our future needs in our enterprise funds, especially water and power. And then we would like to, after we review enterprise funds, circle back to some of the discussion we had last time, two weeks ago, and discuss some of those items that were deferred, and we've got some recommendations there. We'll touch briefly on the compensation plan as well, and that'll be today. So, without further ado, you've seen this slide before, but you can see that in 5 of the 6 enterprise funds we're operating at a loss. We'll dive into the details here in the slides to come forward, but next slide. So with that, turn it over to Dean and Marin.
Great. So I want to start with the water fund, and I'm going to start with the Waterworth model before we get to Josh and kind of the budget. Where is my mouse? Thanks, bro. There we go. So this is the Waterworth model for water. So this blue, let me back up. So we built this Waterworth model by importing fiscal year 24 actuals, expenses and revenues. We use fiscal year 25 budget, revenues and expenses, and then we projected from there like a 2.5% increase for both. So this, I'm just going to kind of build the graph from the bottom up and just kind of walk you through it. So this blue is just operating expenses, and then if we add in contracted services, which is water purchases, and then we have capital improvements as well. Josh helped us work through the list and build kind of projected for the next 10 years what kind of projects are on the horizon. So these are our expenses for the next 10 years. And then if we add in this yellow sale of water service, which is the utility rates.
Marin, just real quick, so to make sure everything that Marin was showing prior to the sale of water service is expenses.
Yes.
So,
do you want to show the detail that makes up those or not?
No. Do you want me to?
I don't care.
Okay. Yeah, so these are all expenses for the next 10 years. So then we add in yellow, which is a revenue, sale of water service, which comes from the utility bills. We can see that it's flat. Right now, this is what we're calling our status quo scenario. No raises of rates, and you can see that our sale of water service is not going to cover even just like our operations and expenditures come 2026, 2027.
and when Marin says operating expenses, that's the staff that we have maintaining the system, just normal day-to-day operations. This isn't special projects. This isn't purchasing equipment or anything like that. This is just the system is in the ground and we need to maintain that system, whether people use water or not. This is what we need to be doing.
So not if something bad happened.
Right.
Unexpected.
Yep.
Right.
Maureen, can you remind me, you said what contracted services were, but
It's the water
The
purchases.
dark blue,
Buying water
yeah.
from Weber Basin.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you say staff, are you talking about salaries?
Uh-huh.
Salaries,
That's part of operating.
benefits, and-
But I guess I don't understand how those two correlate. Or right now, are we not showing that? When you're saying it doesn't cover,
So the light blue is the operation expenses. So salaries, maintenance, all of that. And then the dark blue is the water purchases.
okay, the orange is not, you're not talking, the orange isn't the salaries and the.
No, the orange is our
what we
revenue.
take in.
That's income.
These
Got it.
two are salaries and buying water. This is
Got it.
us selling water.
Understood now.
So is there any way you could show on those orange graphs if you
added a 1% increase.
Yes, yep, so we'll get to that one. So then there's, other operating revenue, developer contributions, non-operating revenue, and then grants. So in 2026, you'll see this blue grants bar. That is the ARPA money we have identified for water projects.
Yep.
And you can see that that still doesn't cover our expenses planned for 2026. So this is where we sit right now. And then I'll show you a model, what we're proposing. Any questions on this one? Okay, so then,
Maybe just add, there is detail that supports all this, all the blue lines. For
Yes.
example, if you want to go back, there are probably, 25 categories that make up that operating expense from salaries to maintenance to any number of things. But we'll probably not show that detail right now.
So in your orange revenue, are you including all revenues that go to the water fund?
the bars is all revenue. Yellow is just utility rates.
The total revenues that we receive from water, is there any other revenues that you're not including in that
No.
orange?
Oh, yes. So that's,
you
like
see
the
the
blue is
red.
ARPA money. The blue right here is ARPA money. And then there's like a darker orange, which is non-operating revenue. So that's like interest, sale of any assets, connection fees. And then other operating revenue, which is like water meter rentals.
So as Marin was saying, every single one of these bars
Is revenue.
Right. I just don't know what all of your revenues are, and I just want to make sure they're all
Sale of
shown.
water, this is ARPA money, and what did you say?
Interest.
That's interest,
Interest.
any sale of assets, like if we sell a vehicle or
Connection
equipment.
fees, it's classified as non-operating revenue. So anything that is not a water sale, so interest earnings, connection fees, something like that, that's the increment there.
So for the capital improvements, Joshua, is that just throughout, is it a big project? Is it not the 200 North, is it?
No, that's,
That's
the
25.
You're looking at there is in 2030-ish, and that's a new water tank that we've got to build.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So then we made a scenario where we just look at rate adjustments.
Most of the cash was on first, or no?
Oh, whoops, sorry, yes, you're right, I'm sorry. Sorry, going back to this one. So then we can also add, we have this red dotted line, which is our operating threshold. Right now, Dean and I have it set at 25% of operating costs. So it's just 3 months worth of operating costs and kind of a rainy day fund balance. That red line is where we want to be. And then if we add in this black line, that's our cash position. So that's taking into consideration our impact fee fund balance right now and our water fund balance right now. So you can see that in 2027, our cash starts to dip below our operating threshold, and by 2028, we're in the negative. So with revenues and cash, we're not covering our operating expenses, capital expenses, and contracted services as it stands today.
Is this over time, or is this over just a snapshot? I know you already said that, but tell me, how much of the look back is this to show that we're not capturing?
So this is from 2024 forward. So 24 actuals, 25 budget, and then projecting from there. Sorry, it is small.
Can you explain the difference between operating threshold and operating expenses? I understand the operating expenses, but why are we concerned about the 2027 point and not the, 2025 when it starts going down?
I mean, I think we are concerned about the 2025 or 2026 even, where our sale of water doesn't even cover operating. But 2027 is, I'm just pointing it out, the operating threshold is kind of like an emergency fund that you would have for your home.
Okay.
Right? If something terrible happened, if we never, utility bills didn't get out and we stopped getting revenue in for a month or two, could we stay afloat while things got picked back up, or, whatever. It's
Just a
kind of an emergency fund.
question.
It's the Dave Ramsey.
Since 2026 shows a pretty good amount of the ARPA funds,
Mm-hmm.
so would it be, since there is going to be a pretty good flush of cash right then, would it make sense with trying to do a tax increase this year to maybe hold off rates till 2027? Because you got plenty of money until 2027 based on ARPA.
But you don't, because you're not covering the capital expenses, the
Yeah,
light
but
green.
you've got a bunch of cash there that you have to use.
What we're trying to measure here is long-term cash forecasting.
Yes.
And you're right, Mike, we understand that some years there are going to be a peak, some years there will be a dip.
It's just that
But
ARPA
we're-
funds.
but we're
is-
trying to set rates in advance so we can handle those peaks, we can handle those dips, and look at cash for the next 10 years.
And I get that, it just looks like,
But when you look at cash, you're not even covering your operating expenses with cash, let alone the capital projects. That's what gives us some pause.
all right, but I realize, but you do have to have those ARPA funds spent by 2027, don't you?
Yeah.
How often can we tap into those ARPA funds? Are they tied to
They're
a
done
specific
now.
project?
This is
Yeah.
the end of it?
This is
This is the last of it.
And even with those ARPA funds, though, right?
There's still a gap.
Look, there's still, that's our gap in funding, so we'll even lose
Yeah,
money
but
that
that
year.
green means there's a project there somewhere, right?
Right, that's the tool, right?
That's 200 north right there.
That's what I thought,
Yeah.
which we are receiving some grant.
Yeah, so,
Which
That's
is,
the ARPA.
that's the ARPA, that's the blue there.
yeah, so we want to see those revenue bars cover the green, the blue, and the blue. So right now, we don't see that at any point in this graph.
Well, yeah, you want to see it cover the green and the blue, but you also don't want to, your intention is not to get the orange and the red as high as, Mount Kilimanjaro in
Sure.
2030, because
Right.
then you're crushing people for that whole time. The idea is to maybe get it,
Yeah, and that's where you take that cash bar,
The
yeah.
cash flow is really what tells you, like, if you're doing, it's kind of averaging out, right?
Yeah, as you're looking long-term, yeah, as was pointed out, there are peaks and there are dips, and trying to get it to a point where we are compensating for when we do have the peaks, the years where we've had.
That there's a surplus to be able to cover that.
We're able to handle those fluctuations.
let me ask you this, how much of, say we were to raise the rates on, well, we're looking at a lot of different things here. How much does that change the deficit of what we're dealing with?
Sorry, I missed the question.
If we're to raise the rates on some of these things, does that alter at all the deficit that we're dealing with on
Yeah,
the,
we'll show the model with projected rate increases and what it does to
The
the,
different
To-
percentages, yeah.
Yeah.
and we can do it on the fly as
I'm
well.
not talking about just this, I'm talking about our first meeting with the deficit,
The $3 million.
yeah.
So.
Or are they two different, they
They're
come
two
out
different
of
funds.
different buckets?
Two different buckets.
Because on this, you're including the salaries and whatnot on there.
For water fund
Yeah,
specifically.
so this is isolated just to the water department and the staff in the water department. And the general fund, property tax, we don't utilize property tax money in paying for water staff, in operating. the
No,
water system.
no monies from general fund pay for their salaries? So when we talk about like,
When we have an employee, we may allocate, for a public works employee, we may allocate some of their salary towards general fund, some of it towards water fund, stormwater fund. So as they submit their time cards, they allocate that where they spent the time.
That's a good point. If I've got, Jared here is the water manager, if Jared gets called in to help snow plow, those hours are gonna be compensated from my general fund budget for streets, which is what I use property
taxes.
And maybe I'm being ignorant here, but with the 3%, or the 3% merit, 2, whatever, COLA, how do you, when you use that, I thought you used that off of all employees' salaries, but,
Well, they do, but see, that means that light blue line, that will increase depending upon how the overall compensation goes up. So, but it goes to this budget.
I understand that.
So here's what makes up the light blue section right here. There are all these categories here.
Okay,
The salaries and wages related to the water fund.
got it.
And we did project for that portion, 5% increase.
Okay, so that's what you're projecting with the,
Just not knowing what's going to happen with water fund over several years, we said benefits, if we hire new employees, let's project that at 5%.
Okay.
Everything else we held at a 2.5% increase.
I think that makes sense.
All those together make up that piece.
Gotcha.
Okay, so then we made a scenario, just proposing rate adjustments. So you can see the difference in the cash line. You can see how the sale of water is increasing. So this is just showing the rates. Right now, we have 15% for the foreseeable future, and that's what the cash line does in the sale of water service. So even though our sales are increasing, we're still dipping into cash pretty much every year until 2028, when we can start building the reserve back up a little. We dip again in 2031 with that large project in 2030, and then we see the cash go up.
And this is with a 15% rate increase
Each year,
Each year.
each year.
each year,
Each year?
yeah.
So it's not like we do 15 this year and then it holds, it's 15, then 15, then 15.
Yeah. So you can see down
Okay.
here, rate increase, I have it, and we can play with it too. You know, if I changed, if we did 15 for 3 years and then we changed it to 10, you know, you can see that your cash goes below zero right here in 2030.
What does that look like for the average family? I can't see all the
I think it's
numbers.
about like $5 to $6
A month, at 15% is $5 to $6 a month.
Yeah, if you say that generically a water bill is around, $30 to $35 a month.
Two monsters.
Yeah, 2 months. The only problem is we're talking about,
I know.
You know what, I've been giving up an ice cream cone, a monster, and a pizza every year for the last, since got to the point where I'm just eating top ramen.
What are you eating?
One of the
Top ramen.
difficulties that we're facing is we purchase all of our water from Weber Basin. Weber Basin has a large number of projects that they've increased our rates that we buy from by, I think, over 10% per year. And it's similar, it's a 3-year high increase, and then they back it back down. So they've been doing that for a couple of years now, these rate increases, and we're not adjusting for those rate increases, so we're spending more to buy the water, we're selling it for the same amount.
We're not passing along the tariffs,
So,
in a sense.
Yes,
And I-
yes.
I think their
We're
rate increase
subsidizing.
for the
Yes.
next 3 years is 15% or 17% for the next
Yeah.
3 years, and then it drops down a little bit.
So let me ask, so if you don't do the rate increases, so you got your water tank, I saw about $9 million capital project, how do you pay for it then? If you don't increase the rate changes, what are the other options?
Bonding.
Your bonding, which is, we got enough other items that we're gonna need to bond for.
The only difference is on bonding, you could secure it with rate revenues, water revenues, so it would be outside of general fund bonding or anything else.
Okay.
We have a scenario.
Yeah.
can I ask one question on the water, since we're on water?
Yeah.
So we have a lot of reserve water shares. We have a lot of access to a lot of water that we bought years ago that we don't use for future growth and development. I know when Weaver Basin doesn't use their water, they sell it at the end of the year. And that's how they sold it to the state of Utah to put into Great Salt Lake. Why don't we sell our water that we have?
The difference that we have between us and Weaver Basin has rights. We're purchasing the ability to buy some of their water. Our contract doesn't give us the actual water right.
It's options.
It gives us the ability to buy some of their water. So if there's excess, it just means we didn't buy any more water. The water belongs, in essence, to Weaver Basin, so they can.
I thought the water actually belonged to us.
Now, we have a right to purchase that water, but we don't actually have the state would qualify as a water right.
Mike may be thinking water shares,
A share, yeah.
and those are Kaysville irrigation shares,
There's those in, I thought it
but
was-
they've all been dedicated to secondary water use. So they're committed
Okay.
to the secondary.
But
water.
with drinking water, the way it works is our contract just says, here's what you're going to pay for every gallon that we deliver to Kaysville City.
We just purchased a lot of water, or I guess access to water.
Yeah, so
6 or 7 years ago.
Exactly,
We purchased
yeah,
a whole bunch of water.
Up front, you have to purchase your access, like you just
You
said.
you cannot sell that or rent that access out.
Good question.
So then we do have a scenario where, you know, you do rate adjustments and you borrow funds. So this one shows a loan in 2030 to cover that project, and rate increases.
What were the increases you put there?
15 for 3 years and then 4%
Going forward.
going forward. So you can see the cash still kind of dips, go below operating, don't hit zero, that's good, in 2028, and then we kind of build back up, get back into that peak and dip and kind of build the reserves back up.
And realistically, I mean, we're talking seven years out, I'm 32.
Sure.
You're gonna have to do more than a 4% down the road.
Yeah,
I
this,
mean, this is all, I hate it when you're doing extrapolations
Yes.
because it's worth nothing.
yeah,
But it gives you a view. But then your interest rates, and my question then is, you know, every time you're bonding, you're doing it at a rate. What's a typical rate? I mean, I hate to even ask that because it's,
It varies.
what our current bonds that we currently are paying off, what's our rate on those?
They're less than 2%. But if we were to bond today,
If we were bond today, we're probably talking 6, 4.
4,
Yeah.
4.5.
So one thing that Dexter, the city engineer, has been doing the last year is Dexter's been building a project master list, working with Jared. And with the information he's put together, he's essentially built a cost estimate for each project.
Okay.
And last week, we were able to submit all of that information to the state to give access to Kaysville City to what is called the State Revolving Loan Fund. Those are lower interest loans, generally like 1 to 2%.
Even in today's
Yeah.
environment.
And through the Water Resources Board. Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So you're saying our rate would be 1 to 3%?
Yeah.
Potentially.
Instead of 4?
So can you put the blue graph up there now with those in there? Because the blue would be that, see it, what about all that cash that's above? You see what I'm saying? Your orange has gotten way up at the 15%, 5%, you've gone way above the blue.
but we're still spending it
But you still got the capital.
because
I
of the
mean,
capital and the
there's only-
deficits
I
increasing.
understand that, but you say that, okay, I'm trying to put, because you said the red line, the red dotted line is your operating costs.
No, it's it's
That's your rainy
25%.
day.
25% threshold.
Yeah, rainy day fund,
As you might be familiar, like with the power fund, they
Yeah.
want to always have a minimum
Yes.
reserve level. That's our minimum reserve.
That's
level.
25%.
And that's 25% of the annual operating expenses.
Okay,
which is the light blue.
okay. But it looks like at your 15%, you're going quite a bit above, where before you were below the blue, now you've gotten quite a bit above the blue.
Yes,
Yeah,
the revenues are,
This is if we do no projects. This is just, hey,
Yeah.
we need to make sure that there's a water leak, we're gonna go fix it. We need to go check PRVs.
This is your
You still have to
15.
pay for the
The
light,
green
you
is
still
all
have to pay for the light
projects,
green.
Yeah.
Right.
The green is all projects.
Green is our.
So you're literally, every time the orange is above the blue, that is cash that you are going to be able to put in the bank somewhere. And then you have to decide what to do with it. So it looks like you're going to get some good cash.
Gonna get
The
some good
cash is the
cash,
black
but we're
line.
also spending, so we see our cash position dropping. It builds up and drops
Yeah,
again.
isn't the black line the cash?
What is
Because
that,
it's-
2028?
And I think that's,
25%.
I think that's a real issue, is we've been deferring some of those capital projects over the years because we've just tried to maintain cash. What we're trying to do
That's a good point.
is stay ahead
So
of deferring those projects.
We're a little different from streets. Streets, every year, we're aggressive. Let's go after, we want one project, at least one project every single year. Water, it's more of a situation where we're, maybe every 2 years doing a project where let's save up a little bit, we'll work through the design and coordination 1 year, we'll do the project the next year. Just because of those financial constraints. And that's good. I think we've got a very robust system. We've seen a lot of capital improvements to the system, modernizing water tanks, PRVs, pump houses, et cetera. But that's all been at the expense of not going and doing regular replacement projects like we would with streets. Hey, this street's getting old, let's replace it. Water line's getting old. Jared and his guys, I think last year we reported that we had over 100 leaks that we responded to. And that number continues to grow, and I don't feel like I'm adequately addressing that issue. Every year, Jared's guys will have more and more leaks. I think just in the last week, there's been 3. And each one of those can range from, $5,000 up to the most recent one on Second West. That'll probably be a $20,000 bill because of the amount of damaged asphalt. We're not doing a lot of replacements, and that's kind of concerning to us. We need to be doing that more frequently, more aggressively.
And Josh, some of these leaks and replacement means that we're talking about pipes that are only like from the 80s, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
some of them are 30 to 40 years old. That's where Jared's probably having most of the headache, is down west of Mike, neighborhood, Knights and Bishops. I'd say that's in the 20 to 25 year range for some of that. And then other areas where we've done replacements, Mutton Hollow, 1000 East, 30s, those were pipes that were 60 plus years old. So a lot of it depends on soil conditions and water table conditions, how careful the contractor was when they installed items, et cetera. So,
No, I just, and all I was looking at is your revenues and your expenditures, and I was saying, okay, in 2027, we're about 750,000 more that we're gonna get in revenue. In 2028, we're gonna get about $1 million more. 2029, we're gonna get about $1 million more in operating. So those are capital, that's money you can roll over into capital projects. That's what I was looking at.
correct,
Right.
yeah.
I think what concerns me is like what Dean was saying, as Josh as well. We've done fine at covering our operating costs in the past, but we haven't invested in, replacing some of these older lines. And I feel like some of these, they are ticking time bombs. So this is just an effort to kind of get ahead of that and replace things over time rather than wait.
This cash line does obviously take into account that, hey, there's going to be increased revenue from water sales if you're adjusting rates. And you see that start to climb, but it also takes into account that not only are we paying for operating costs and contract water, but we're also paying for capital projects. So you see that climb, and then you'll also see a decline. So
Okay, so even with the bond, you know, the magenta or whatever color that is, what are we paying that money with? So what do we pay the,
With the utility rate.
okay,
Do you
so,
see another color there, that light blue?
yes.
Oh,
The debt
yes,
service.
That
this,
becomes your debt service.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't, okay, thank you.
sorry, yes, that teal.
Oh, proposed debt,
Teal,
okay.
is that what that is?
Yeah,
okay.
whatever, mint, I don't know.
Teal to me.
It
what's
matches your shirt.
A lighter blue.
Lighter
your-
blue.
Okay, I missed that addition.
I didn't point that out, that's good.
Just 15% sounds like a lot. To me, you could do 5%, you'd still have, your revenues would be higher than your expenditures. You could take that money and put it into, and if you have to bond, you should be able to make a bond payment with that extra money without having to hit it with a 15% increase, right?
Can you play with it?
Sure, and that's what we're asking, so if you guys,
Just walk through some scenarios.
yeah, so if we want to bond in 2026, how much should we, I don't,
Do the
70.
principal amount and see the issue year, issue.
Oh,
that.
okay.
78,000 or million?
Million.
Why would I want a bond for that in 27?
what?
Are you just doing,
2026
Or
A year,
26.
fiscal
that.
year.
Capital.
I mean, that starts in July.
for that capital, for
So
that.
so bond it now.
Yeah,
Okay.
bond earlier rather than later.
I just hate debt.
See, I don't have a problem paying a bond when the rates are paying the payment, you know? And I don't care if we have 2 or 3 bonds out, like, and this is an enterprise.
Take
fund
this one
where
out.
It's actually making the payment. I don't need to put a cash reserve in my mind. I don't have
Just do
to
like
save
2
up
million?
all the money to make that one-time purchase. If I can spread it out in time and not hurt people's pocketbooks so much. Right?
Or you can take out the
3?
bond and then make the payment to the bond with the bond's money, put the rest in a high earning interest.
Interest.
So here's what we've done, we're suggesting,
Or crypto.
Or buy Tesla.
If we take the bond out for 4%, but we put it into like high yielding
it's arbitrage and get you in trouble.
arbitrage?
So what we're doing here then, let's say was issue in 2026, $3 million at 3% interest rate. Let's see what the model looks like if we do that.
So we still have the 15%, so then we can come here and we can change the rates. So if we did,
I would keep it at 5, just, you know, what if you just keep it? Because you've already shown how the cash is gonna dip regardless.
yep. So we still have that problem in 2030 with that water tank. But yes, Mike has a great point.
You do have that problem with the water tank, but you could bond for the water tank.
Yes.
And make the payment. for it.
Yep,
That's what that's showing.
But that means,
That's
that
not
means
making a payment, right?
you've got 2 bonds though.
What's the other one?
the one we're doing for 2026 that we just put in.
So can you show us with the bond in 2030 as well? Is that what you were wanting, Mike? Because we got the, what is the one in 26 for again?
Yeah, what is 2026 bond?
200 north.
200 north, okay.
I think that was the suggestion, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what his suggestion was. It might have been suggested improperly, but that's what the suggestion.
Were you saying the bond in 2026 for the 2030 project, or were you saying bond for the 2026
I
project?
don't know what the 2026 bond is.
It's
I
the
didn't
200
see
north.
that. Okay.
That's the additional that we're getting the ARPA funds, but there's still a delta.
Deficit, yeah.
But Mike, you're saying as long as the rates pay for it, you're
Yeah.
okay not building a 15% extra cash reserve?
Yeah.
Okay.
It looks to me like you can accomplish the same thing at a 5% rate increase.
Only you lose, you go into the negative with the cash flow.
It is going negative.
Yeah, even with the bond in 2030,
Okay,
Jeez.
okay, that,
Okay, what if we did a rate increase in 2029?
That's with the rate increase every year.
I know, but
if we do,
greater than 5. Let's say we do,
we do 5 for 3 years and then move to, yeah.
Didn't even change that cash flow. I don't trust the math.
You never do.
So, it's like nothing's ever
The
gonna
draft
change.
didn't really change much, but,
With the 10%?
yeah, it didn't really change much.
It's not when you're looking at that amount of debt.
It's just,
My mind never changed.
Well, because what they're saying is like, when you borrow that much money, you're not gonna be able to pay it back with just like teeny increases. You're gonna have to.
For 5 years, you should have been putting money into a capital improvement to make that payment.
Yeah, but we haven't been able to put money into that capital
You will,
improvement.
though, based on those projections, if you do, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Oh,
Gee,
the first one?
Keep it 15 on twice.
15 and then drop it.
It's not bad.
that's not bad right there. Nice job, Nate. So you do 15% 1 year, and then you go 5.
And then 15% again at 2030.
With the
And then,
loop back?
and then maybe if you don't mind, after 2030, do 2031 and 32 and 33, switch those back to like 5 or 5%. Oh,
It
okay.
doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, that makes more sense to me.
I mean, we obviously don't have to decide anything today. We just want to show you how the model works, and coming out of the gate, we think 15% is probably where we need to be this year.
For this year.
For 2026?
Because every year, we're gonna do this
Yes.
every single year
This-
regardless.
Yep.
I
So-
think especially as Weaver Basin, as Dean pointed out, is, 17+% increases. I think we should absolutely be trying to,
We should be mirroring them
So,
instead of subsidizing.
Yes.
100%.
So, and I do want to make just a quick side note, and I don't know who in our staff would be, or if this needs to be like a city council, thing that one person is in charge of, kind of like how we assign things. But I feel like the biggest issue we're dealing with too here is like getting the information across to our citizens. Because I think that, they had that issue in, where was that place back east where the water, Flint, Michigan, you know what I mean? And everybody, oh, I can't believe they would let that happen, right? But probably there was a meeting like this, similarly, 10 years, 15 years in Flint, Michigan, where they're like, we're not raising rates. We'll hold off, right? And then
Well,
that
that
happens.
was the cause of the Flint crisis, is they found a cheaper source of water. It was a different water source that had a different chemical composition, and as that was introduced into their system to save money, it reacted differently with the piping of their system. That's what started leaching lead and other contaminants.
So I guess my point is, I think that, I'm pretty sure that if people saw these types of things and our, whatever, monthly or semi-annually brochure that we send out, that doesn't do it. People we're in a, we want to see fast little pieces of information.
Little
So
data points with
anyway,
pictures
that's a
as well.
side note. It doesn't have anything to do with this, but I think that that's going to be a really important element to all of this, is informing. I think that Mayor makes a great point that people in our city, most people came here and they expect high services and they expect things to be great. That's how we need to show them, like, hey, things aren't great in X, Y, Z, but we want them to be great.
To me, it seems fairly easy to explain, say 17% rate, because this is what Weaver Basin has passed on to us.
Oh yeah, and throw it on them. That's the other thing. Like, you don't even have to say, hey, just so you guys know, rates have gone up. Weaver Basin has increased their rates by 17%. We're actually subsidizing 2% of that, so your rate's only going up to 15.
And I think to add to that, we've previously been doing that, and I think combining those two messages, we haven't been mirroring previously.
Right.
We've been trying to lessen the impact, but
To our
the
district.
impacts from Weaver Basin are still coming to us. And now we're seeing an impact to Jared and his department of them having a decreased ability to do what they need to do. You know, I think the last department report we had, when I reported the number of leaks, I had multiple agencies reaching out. You guys do that? That's a lot of leaks. Engineers reaching out, like, hey, I heard you guys have a lot of leaks. Do you guys need help, like, coming up with some projects? We've got 200 north, we can't think about anything else. Once that's done, we'll pivot to the next project. We can't think of anything else. But in the meantime, these are all big, giant capital projects, but we need to be going into Knights and Bishops in the meantime and replace those water lines. Because right now, what you have is repair band, that they're just clamps that go around the pipe. You know, you've got thousands of feet of just Band-Aid, 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 and we're not fixing those, we're not replacing the new pipes. And I've heard concerns about the cost of construction. We have those similar concerns. But the cost of street construction can absolutely just like kill cities, but water will eat you 10 times faster and has much more ability to impact people's quality of life. And this isn't me trying to throw anybody under the bus or downplay anything else that these other departments do, but like I'll die on the hill, like gladly, that water is almost as important as anything that a city is going to do. Water quality and then the reliability of the system. You know, that's a health thing, that's fire suppression, just like kind of the niceties of being able to shower regularly, things like that, but clean drinking water, reliably delivered, I think it's
up there with public safety, for sure.
Josh, is there a way to get a picture of a pipe that we're band-aiding? Just because, you know, you describe it to me and I think, oh.
How
well,
often,
I don't know what that
yeah.
Well, just
No.
to include in our slides.
Absolutely.
So that we've got a
No,
picture.
like
This
when
is
your
what
guys
it-
go out and fix things, do they take pictures?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because,
Will you send them to us
Well,
when
it's-
those things
Well, I
happen?
remember when we did the,
Don't.
oh shoot, the Kaysville University.
yeah,
and-
that was
and-
really helpful.
And it was actually, it was like, you gotta be crap, you know,
Yeah.
kidding me,
Right.
that this is what we have in the city.
But we haven't done that for years.
Since the second week of February until
Okay.
Monday.
So
And then just
give us a picture, and to your point, on a slide, it would be really good. Weaver Basin did this is what Kaysville's been doing to subsidize, this is why we're doing this, so that we have some things that we can post and put out there. People identify with things like that, but when you're just talking about, well, the pipe's old, I'm thinking, well, aren't all pipes old? I mean, I don't know what that looks like as a
I
resident.
think people can understand that, like, as you said, if we're giving them good information,
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do here with everybody, is try and give good information. Down on Knights and Bishops, I keep coming to that, because that's this, like, we keep kicking down the road in public works. The last leak that we had there, the residents came out to Jared and his guys and were like, hey, no offense, like, we appreciate you guys coming out, but like, when is the city gonna actually do
Fix
something
this.
about this? Instead of put the Band-Aid on, repave it and move on. And these guys are digging up holes right next to the previous patch that you can see in the pavement and putting a repair van right next to the other one, and right next to the other one.
So with that in mind, what do we need to do now to pull that into consideration, to try to start moving on that with our rates?
My opinion is a larger rate increase up front to mirror Weaver Basin, combined with bonding for that larger capital project of the water tank.
So why aren't we putting 17% there? Why don't we just mirror it?
Okay.
Weaver Basin for the
Well,
next-
Weaver Basin is a large part of the budget, but it's not all the budget.
That's not all.
I mean, it's probably what,
What if you did
60% of the water budget?
What if you did 17% in 2027 or 15?
What, do you understand what he's saying though, Nate, is that Weaver Basin is only 60% of the total water budget. So by us charging our folks this equivalent of Weaver Basin, we're actually doing more than what they're, because.
We're making up for what we subsidized the last few years.
Yeah, that's fine. But, the message, like you said, the message is there, but if we're gonna be honest, it's pulling more than what you actually need to cover their increase.
Yeah, I understand that, but I want to cover their increase, but I also want to look to see all these other projects that we need to do in the future.
Sitting there, right?
I just think that, like, I don't feel like we need our black line to be that high.
But that's with bonding twice.
That's with bonding twice, yeah, but I'm just saying, like,
No, I got you.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. I don't think it needs to be all the way up.
yeah, like, let's keep it, like, right, almost where the red line
Red
is.
line's at 25, we certainly don't need to be a 75 or a red line.
Yeah.
In theory, that would be against everything the Utah code says, you should be up to 35%. That's it.
That's a good point, Mike.
What this has, right? This has 17% this year plus a bond.
Plus a bond.
Okay.
That is what this is showing, right?
That's what that shows.
The two bonding scenarios.
Yeah, the two bonding scenarios.
So I guess as far as the tentative budget goes, do we want to consider a bond or in that budget?
Oh, for 2026,
Yeah.
you don't want a bond for that $3 million?
Okay, so we have to have, the ARPA funds are not gonna cover.
They're not gonna
the
cover.
additional $3 million.
Yeah, we're
That's what you're
$3
saying,
million
Josh.
short.
We're a couple million short.
The bond that we had originally talked about with Marin and Dean, I believe was for the Greenland tank.
Yeah, but now if we bonded for 26 to cover the deficit for 200 North.
If we bond in 26, how long will it take the city to pay that off?
Good question.
Well, in the millennium.
I mean, in this borrowing scenario, we did just a 20-year assumption. We haven't researched it
But
besides this moment.
I guess
I mean, you could bond.
initially, how were you gonna pay
could
for that
bond-
how were you gonna pay for that $3 million deficit?
That's that light teal line, or that debt service line.
Well, cash right now is what's in the
Yeah.
budget, but then if
Okay.
you bond,
We
it's,
have the cash right now.
Cash
Well,
from
we have
the
cash, but then
fund
what
balance.
you saw was that
You
drop.
could
General fund
bond,
or-
you could do a single bond.
water fund balance.
Right,
We're
right.
just gonna use cash.
Okay, so take out
For the deficit.
just for the sake of,
Take out
take out that
26?
26 bond and just show us what the cash flow now looks like in that scenario. Yeah, that's not bad.
What are the increases down below?
That's not bad.
We gotta make sure the increases are okay.
Keep that at 15.
Because it goes back up
This
in
one, I think.
2033.
Or 26.
Well,
I keep,
Because, yeah, come 2034, we're back on the rise and we'll be able to probably drop it down to zeros or whatever.
Unless you've got all your orange
I don't
above,
think you ever
it's
drop
going
it
to
down
be
to
going
zero.
to the capital
Huh?
project.
No, yeah,
I don't
zeros.
think you're ever able to drop it down to zero.
No. Oh, 0% increase? Well, yeah, if there aren't any more projects.
I've got a 35-year list of projects.
Oh,
So in
This is just
35
out to
years, we can drop it to
2034.
zero, John.
Fun.
So as far as direction that we're giving them,
so
Give
do
me
you
some-
guys
give me some
want to do
feedback.
17 instead of 15?
keeping in mind we have some other rates to look at too.
Yeah,
I mean, there are a million ways to skin the cat. I mean, you could say, let's do a 10% increase this year. Let's bond in 27 for all capital projects. So instead of having two bonds, you've got a single bond that covers your next capital project for the next 10 years.
So by doing that though, would you push that tank schedule for 30 forward? Is that what you're
Possibly.
saying?
I mean,
You
if
could.
you could get some
Start
cost
building it
savings, that's a
sooner if you're gonna
possibility.
bond
Because it
it.
seems silly to have a debt that you're paying interest on, even if it's 2%,
You're not doing it.
that you're not doing it.
Yes.
You got the money in the bank.
That you're getting, so you're losing money.
But you could set that money aside for that project and earn interest on it.
Can we plug
Oh,
that in?
that's
I
not
thought you said we
arbitration,
weren't able-
Well, if
arbitrage?
there's a difference,
So we can make money on the debt.
So we can put it
So
in
we're
crypto.
actually buying on margin.
yeah.
That's not
Right.
arbitration.
Within, there are some IRS regulations though.
You did.
You can't make too
A
much.
certain percentage.
So let's bond now for it and put that money in, just not arbitrage, but what you were talking about, if you're setting it aside.
But I mean, there's some, we'd have to check with bond counsel. There'd have to be some IRS regulations you have to deal with. But
Look into it, I say. If we're gonna bond,
Bond high, bond big.
bond high, bond big.
But the bond is only specific to this. This
Well,
cannot
I
just be a
mean,
general bond that we're just bonding.
with the
it.
cost of construction, it may pay to do Green Road sooner than later. Maybe you bond in 27 and do that project.
Yeah.
You have the
To
manpower
us,
to
the
do
big
that?
thing that we want to do is we just want to be able to do projects. We want to, the newer capital projects, like a new water tank, we need to be able to provide adequate fire suppression storage, and we're quickly approaching the point where we can't do that, especially as density isn't just 2 units per acre and growth continues on the west side. We want to do projects, these new ones, but we have to start doing replacement projects. And we're not trying to be hyperbolic, we're not trying to scare people, but it is a razor thin margin between everything is okay and we have a very big, huge problem. And every fire response that chief is going on, I just asked Jared, about half of the time there are leaks resulting and there's hydrants that have to be replaced. So that means that the response ability for the fire department after that one event is decreased. If there's something in that same neighborhood, and again, the likelihood is probably small, but it's not zero. Go back into that neighborhood and sorry, we've got the hydrant bagged, or we've got a leak and we don't have the water pressure capability. We're not trying to scare people, but it's getting worse every year, and when it goes bad, it's gonna be very bad. So,
I like the idea of doing a large James in 2027 and have it cover those two. Is that what you were saying, you're proposing? James it then,
Do Green Road sooner rather than later and other capital projects.
this kind of thing, James.
It just took me a
Josh, do we
second.
have
You get it
the
right?
manpower to
It just
do
took me a
the
second.
tank sooner if we were to do that? Like, do we have the bandwidth to, like, if we're, like, to Perry's point earlier, like, if we're bonding now and then it's just sitting there?
It'd be hard, but I think it's doable with a lot of the legwork that Dexter and Jared have put in, building up some of the project design and the concept, cost estimate, things like that. So that's part of the bandwidth draw, is managing, putting the project together. The other component of bandwidth is managing the project itself. So it's tight, but we've been able to reshuffle responsibilities in Public Works the last 3 years. Adding an additional inspector in the water department, so we're a little bit more flexible. It's tight, but you know, the sooner the better for, I think, everything that we can do.
Well, then, I guess to John's point too, if we did decide to do this, I think it would be good to have like a list of projects, like, we're bonding for this, it's gonna cover all these things. I mean, maybe that was just
Yes.
built into the suggestion, but I think if we did that, we'd have to really do a good
I'm glad
PR.
you brought that up,
Piece.
rather than just bonding for the Jamesing, for just the two things, you increase, add the other stuff as well. And depending on how the bond, obviously, folks would allow.
I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think what we could do is we could recommend a 10 to 15% increase this year with consideration of bonding next year, and identify those capital projects that we'll bond for, and then plug that into the model going forward.
Yeah.
And I feel more
Yeah, I
comfortable,
like that.
Nate, I don't know how you feel, but I feel more comfortable then, if that's the case, that this year we do, rather than 17, we do 10. Because we're going to be talking about tree taxation, obviously 7 other different,
I don't want to speak for you, though.
I know it's not exactly splitting the difference, I'd be more comfortable with 15.
Yeah.
If it's not 17, going to 15.
okay?
And 15, yeah, 15 is what we have built into the slides when we get to those.
Oh, okay, well, we
Yeah,
don't
don't mess up.
say with 15 then. 14 and a half.
Well,
Whoops.
and I guess you could tell us a dollar difference on average between 10 and 15. I mean, $100 is that $3.
And again, we're just trying to prepare for the tentative budget. Nothing has to be decided now.
Sure.
Okay.
We're just trying to put it together
Great.
so you can consider the tentative budget.
That sounds good. Well, before we move past water, real quick, do you have any employees that are under the 5% or in the 0%?
I don't think that the
I wasn't-
evaluation came back below the 5%, but we do have concerns about several specific employees who, I don't want to like downplay anybody's importance, but their role is more critical to water quality than others. And one of those individuals has had a couple offers. He's decided to stay, so we worry about losing him because he's not below that 5% right now.
Is he in the, no, below 0 is why I said 0 to 5.
I don't know where exactly he's at. I just know that they're not below 5. So I've got 3 specifically that I'm concerned about, one of them being the individual running the department.
Okay.
Any more questions on Waterworth? Okay.
You'll see it again with power, so.
While you're pulling that up, I love being able to see the adjustment like live. That was
Yeah.
very helpful, so I like that tool.
This is great software.
Yeah, it's been a really cool tool.
Good job, council. This was a good idea.
So this, these slides, same format that we had 2 weeks ago with general fund. The only difference is I also included an actual list of all capital projects scheduled for 2026.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yeah, you can see there 200 North, that'll be a multi-year project. So we'll have 200 North on the budget for next year as well as we come back and wrapping that project up.
So this revenue shows the increase of fees at the 15%, and then we're still dipping into fund balance 898,000.
So just to clarify, Maureen, as we dip into fund balance, that's where we see our
The cash.
cash position continue to drop.
Yep, that black line.
And in addition to that, we are obviously doing a very large project on 200 North, but there is 0 project doing any other replacement work in Kaysville.
Any other questions with water?
Remind me what the current balance is of the water fund? I'm trying to, you know, because if you're gonna use 900,000 on that, I just was curious, you know.
It's pretty high. So I think 4 million or
We
something.
have it in here.
4 million.
It is $2.6 million.
Oh, 2.6.
Yeah, 2.6, and then 600,000 of impact fees.
Okay. So we could do it. But, yeah, that's,
Okay. So if there's no more questions on water, we'll move into power, which takes us back to the Waterworth model. So here is power. I'll just kind of build it again like we built water. So here's the operating expenses. Then you add in contracted services, which are power purchases. Here is what we have for capital. We have projected out to 2027 projects. Brian, I can speak more to that. I think you wanted, what did you say you needed to do? Capital forecasting again? Yeah. So then this is our sale of service, which again is the utility rate. Other operating revenue and non-operating revenue and grants. So
we have no grants projected.
correct, yeah. So operating threshold for power is $8 million. We didn't do a percentage on this one. I think there's an actual policy.
You have a cash reserve policy that says you ought to have more than that as your operating threshold. But we think we could revisit that cash reserve policy and lower it a little bit. But we think $8 million is a good number as a threshold.
Is that a number that UAMPS gave us or one that we set for ourselves, that $8 million?
I'm sorry?
The cash reserve, did UAMPS set that or is that?
We do. We set
Okay.
that.
What does UAMPS require?
They don't require anything. They have recommendations, but they don't require anything.
Yeah, this is UAMPS's recommendation. They don't require anything, but this is based off of their recommendation and the norm for the industry.
So again, based on what we have budgeted for 25 and then projections for 26, we're crossing that threshold in 26, 0 in 28, and dip into negative.
And the biggest increase is that UAMPS piece.
Yes.
And you can see the escalation there.
We have actuals for UAMPS for the next 3 years.
Just 1 year right now.
Oh, 1 year.
Yeah.
What's that increase? Did you talk about
What
that?
do we project from there?
So it's just because of the cost, it's not because of their weird new program that they're
No,
rolling out?
none of that's been implemented yet.
We just did 2.5%. But,
Oh, yeah.
Conference.
Okay, so
and you're going up 1.1 million.
Yeah. That might be low. 2.5% might be low.
I think it is.
How many of those wind turbines could we put out on the mountain?
it gets windy here. That's a good idea, John.
I know.
We put one in every person's yard.
Everyone's yard
Put
has
our
to have
turbines in Layton.
Yeah, let's do
A lot of hot
that.
air coming from Layton.
Beaufort Heights, they're in the mountains, right? That would be really.
So this scenario has a 10% increase for 3 years and then 5%. So I'll just show this slide that includes everything. And then we can go to that section where we can kind of play with the rates, but
So are we not showing capital improvements over the next 10 years?
we only have capital for
For this,
about 3 years.
for the year that we're current, okay.
Yeah, through 2027 it looks like.
And Brian can speak to this, but talking with Brian, he thinks after 2 or 3 years, once the substations are done, we'll be in pretty good shape. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, once these substations are done, we'll be in pretty good shape and we'll be able to re-project out what we're looking like for the other substations, but we're not gonna need, when we work in the other substations now, we're not gonna be looking at necessarily putting in new infrastructure and everything, just replacing the transformers that we have in them. Once they get too old and start to age and go out. So the cost will be significantly less. There's no way for us to really project that I mean, there's no way for me to say that a transformer at the west sub's gonna go out in 2025.
Yeah.
You know, and that's impossible for me to say. That transformer's old,
Well,
but
that's
it
why
can
you have,
easily
that's why
run
you
for
have the
30 more
balance.
years.
That's why you have the balance for those
Yeah.
type of emergencies. Okay, so I
Yeah,
understand.
so, these are our two huge major capital improvements that are going on right now between the two substations. It's gonna really help us, put us in a really good place. There is the consideration in the future for bonding for our own generation, for peak shaving. But the idea is the cost savings, once that happens, if we do end up going that route in 5-6 years down the road, the idea is that the benefit of having our own generation would pay for itself. The savings that we would make on peak shaving and everything else would pay the bond off on its own. And then once that's paid off, it would just be benefit to us. And so there's not a massive increase there either. And so just looking way out in the future, outside of maintenance, repairs of old infrastructure, we don't really have any major projects in the near future that I'm projecting.
Brian, does
at
that
this
take
time.
into account also potential new developments? You know, we've
Yes.
got these areas that may be built out,
Yep.
assuming the maximum and the increase in EV, which Mike's mentioned before,
Yes,
electric vehicles. That's taken all of those things into account.
Can I ask
I
why we
believe
want,
so, yes.
why do we want the black line? I mean, obviously, that's way down the future, I guess, and I get that, but don't.
No, you're right.
As a non-money marketing, yeah, I mean, it's like, our intent isn't to make
Correct.
money, so like, wouldn't we want to be like closer to the
Closer
red
like that.
line?
Closer like that.
Yeah.
Well, even closer than that.
Well, I mean, but
Look at those
she's been adjusting it,
Realistically, we want to level off of the red line.
Level off, right, and so I guess I don't understand why we, and again, I'm not,
I think that's what Waterworth recommended is kind of oscillating around that red line
yeah.
in
So-
various utilities.
So not to be like a turd here, but if you go to 2026 and switch that to 5%,
we will dip really bad in 27.
Okay.
Okay,
that's good to know.
that's good to know.
Okay, so you go back to 10 there. And then maybe you change the next one to 5. I don't know,
something,
I'm
or
curious how
something.
that goes, yeah. I don't know. Again, this will be each year, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, huh?
So really the sweet spot is where?
Well,
Making it a little bit more,
now,
Like percentage?
now
Yeah.
just for, yeah, I was gonna say just for shits and giggles, you'd go like 2026, 5, but you go 5% all the way. In 10 years, are we back up, or is that, can you do the whole thing 5, or do you have to go into each one? Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
In the turd.
I don't remember. Oh, there we go. It's like once the cell is yellow,
Yeah,
once,
so.
I was just curious if it goes back up. Yeah, see, it does, it makes its way back
look
up.
how low you're dipping
I
there,
get it.
28 through 30,
I
which you
get
don't
it.
want.
Yeah, but that's, you say that, Mary, but that's based on you're not including those orange lines above your blues. You're gonna have some of that money that's gonna be able to go back down into your cash reserves.
That's what the black is showing.
Black line is the cash reserve.
I know the black line is the cash reserve, but are you also taking the portion of the orange lines that are above and then putting it down
Yeah.
every year? and
That's what the
including
cash,
that?
does.
that's what the black
I
line
understand
is.
Yeah.
The black line is your cash, not reserves. It's your
Right.
cash position,
Okay.
total cash.
Hmm.
So
If you're-
Now, look,
So the
it's-
question is, do we want to go 10?
That's playing with fire.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right,
Especially
so,
where we don't have projects.
all right, so you put that back to 10, you take out the zeros, and then we just, yeah, okay, I see. Gotcha.
we're good.
So that's at 10.
That's at 10 for fiscal year 26.
We don't want to
Five.
change that, because that's what you got on the
And then
slides.
So far, you're talking about raising water 15%,
Yep.
Power
power
10,
10%, and tax increase.
Yep.
and more. So we got
But wait,
sewer,
there's more.
we got sewer,
Or
pressure.
we identify things that we just don't do or stop doing.
Every other house gets water.
So while we're on power, I do have a question.
Great.
Because we are so limited what we can do with those funds. why are we not paying a franchise back to the city from the power company to the general fund?
Found this in
We
the,
we did hear this at the
the
league.
league, yeah. It's kind of cool.
The energy use
We
tax.
do that.
Do you do that? Do we already charge a franchise tax that goes back
Yeah,
to the?
we do.
Yeah,
All
so,
right. We didn't know.
We didn't know if we did.
That was a cool idea.
It's about $1.2 million every year.
Yeah, nice. We knew you'd be on top of
Tell
that,
you what,
Dean.
the best idea that I heard got out of that was your 2026 budget should be based on your 2025 revenue. That was the best.
So, the other thing that they did say that maybe we don't charge, at least they had that we don't charge down there at the league, was for, we don't have a hotel, but I guess people,
Room tax.
Airbnb and stuff like that.
I've brought that up for the last few years.
We don't have yeah, and I think we should,
We'll probably
We
want to
have-
add that once we get the hotel.
Yeah.
well, we'll definitely want to add it with the hotel, but I think that, like they were saying, that you could add it right now, and if there's any Airbnbs, it's not like it's not like we have to go locate these Airbnbs. If they use it through their,
We'd have to allow Airbnbs first, though.
what?
Currently, technically, our ordinance does not allow,
But
people
what
are
this
still
would,
doing it.
what this would do is it would allow us to figure out if people have it. Because if you put it on Airbnb's site and we have that tax, then they collect it for us. Does that make sense?
yeah.
And so then we would know instantly, like, which addresses.
And they would report it to the state tax
Yes,
commission, and the
yes.
tax commission would.
And Abby has been advocating for this for a long time.
I think it'd be a
so
great,
I think it's
and
a
it
really
doesn't
good
cost us any manpower to then
It does
identify
not.
who's doing it.
idea. John,
Yeah.
Abby also has been
I
talking
agree.
about this for a
I
very
think we
long
should do
time.
that.
Okay, Abby, I second your motion. I don't remember you motioning it, but
She has brought it up several times. I think that's a good idea.
Abby, next time just say, hey, John, say this really loud.
Yeah.
I think I'll start doing that. Yeah.
Nice idea, Abby.
We should have you sitting
Didn't
next to
you say
John.
that like 2 years ago?
Yeah.
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 It's like everything else. Abby has said things years in advance, and
Yeah.
we've just
Just
ignored her.
Just listen to Abby.
Thanks, guys.
You're
Abby,
welcome.
what should we
We've
do
just
this
ignored
year?
her.
Well, the problem is, you don't have Abby sitting next to John up on the,
We are gonna fix that.
I'll whisper.
We sat
in your
next
ear,
to each other for a
And
while.
you can say the things.
No, but really good
Well, then you
ideas
just
and
ignore
good
it.
suggestions, you guys. We need to do these things that we can do and are allowed to do, so we should. We should.
Yeah.
Okay.
so here's the list of projects for power department.
so it's actually less dire than water. It's actually not a bad, when you look at the escalation of prices across everything, it's really not as bad as I would have thought. So,
We haven't done anything for several years.
well, I know that. That's exactly right. And so you look at what you,
We're making up.
$2 million.
So with water, we said it was $5 to $6 per household per month or year?
per month.
Okay, and then what did we think if a 10% on power would be also?
Probably the same.
I think it'd be around, probably more.
I know I pay about
$5 to $6 a month.
That's based off of, I think, our average, I think we're looking at just under 1,000 kilowatt hour usage. per household.
I'm a typical customer, average customer, and I think I paid $1,300 last year in power.
The whole year?
10% would be $130.
Yeah, so $10.
I think I paid that a month.
The water, we were saying $5 or $10? The water, we were saying 5,
5 to 6, yeah.
5 to 6. Power, we're saying 10.
Could be 7 to 10. You're one of the
7 is
customers that love.
I know, I'm really good. I had someone come out, Brian came out, or someone. Not you. What's his budget?
So on this slide, I do have the increase of fee at 10%.
Is your whole house?
And then we are using fund balance for those projects, 1.3 million. And the biggest increase is that UAMPS payment.
So based on this,
And John and Mike, so you see that transfer to general fund, energy use tax? That's what that franchise tax is.
So, right here.
Where am I, oh,
which one is it?
The
the
transfer.
second, the second bottom.
The general fund.
The 1.18,
That-
yeah.
Great.
And that is 6% of revenue, so as power revenues go up, the transfer amount goes up to the general fund.
So, didn't, last year, I lost track on time, you know, we've got the graduated rates, you know, for usage, you know.
Yeah.
That's all taken into account with, okay, so is this a flat 10% on everything, or?
Yeah,
On all the
usage.
tiers.
Yep.
So if I'm Tammy and I'm using that much more, she's gonna escalate even higher.
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned that for Lee. That's good.
Yeah.
Lee would want to know.
That just means I can't have my grandkids around because they've been here for 2 weeks and I know my costs, you know, since every light in the house goes on.
Yeah.
I go to Tammy's garage to
Yeah.
warm up.
And you-
The heat floor.
It is heated, so there you go. Yeah.
It is good.
Lee's got a heater in there.
In your garage,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I ask a budget question? on this
driveway makes
page?
sense.
Well,
Yes.
there's a heater in the garage, so we put it that way.
So, under the expenses, under capital, is there any way that the 2025 could be reduced from the 4 million on capital down to 3,750,000 or whatever to cover the 281, so we didn't show a deficit? Is there any carryover that we would have there that we would not have to show a deficit in 2026 and not have to?
He's
do that?
wondering if we're gonna hit that
Because I
capital
don't know if
number,
Brian has
or if
spent that entire
any of
capital
those
budget. I
projects
thought
are
there
gonna
was
be
some
carried
things we
forward.
didn't do, so there's some money left over.
Yeah, I most likely will not use that whole entire capital budget. in
So there
25.
should be some money in that capital right there that you should be able to
Yep.
reduce that number, which would reduce that number on that other side.
Well, it does for the current year, but it doesn't change the model because the model has the total costs.
Okay, you're not gonna give me anything, so.
How does it not change the model? Because
Yeah.
Because we put the model over several years. This is just looking at, what do we think we're gonna spend this year on capital? And that may vary. If you look at the model, you're just plugging in project costs, even though it may go over several years.
But I guess the question from Mike's perspective is when you built the model, you put in how much cash you're starting with, and that amount you're starting with is actually going to be higher than because he didn't do the projects that he was going to do.
Yeah, so when we get the
So it
actuals for
would alter
25.
the model.
Yeah. Right.
Once we have the actuals.
Sure, when we get the actuals, we'll look at it again.
But I don't wanna raise the rates on it based on the fact that we're gonna save $500,000 in capital improvements, which would cover that. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't wanna.
I mean, the model is trying to project several years, not just 1 year.
Right. No, I
So,
get.
if you don't want to raise
2026
rates at all, I mean, the model's going to tell you your cash is going to go
What
down.
we do this year, though,
Yeah.
affects future years.
We look long beyond 26 because if whatever you do in 26 is going to affect clear out to 35 and beyond.
Understand, but we're talking capital projects, we're gonna have some money left over, which will cover, which will lower that amount. Because you got the capital projects figured in to,
2.9,
2026, you got 2.9 million in there.
and using 1.3 of fund balance. So it would just lower that amount as well.
Okay.
Anything else, Brian, on power?
I understand what you're saying. Changes.
Okay, so stormwater has some capital projects. I don't know, Josh. Do you want to speak to this, or does anyone have questions? Stormwater projects?
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Web lane, land drain.
So there's a land drain just west of Mike, there at the Holmes Creek culvert that we've been looking at for the last year, and it looks like that's gonna have to be replaced.
So in this budget, we have a 20% increase just to cover our operating costs. If you look at that previous slide with the loss.
$2.
Yeah, but it's only $1.60.
$1.60.
Yeah. Went from $8 to $9.60 per home.
Yes.
Yes.
What's really helpful to me as we look at these projects that we need to do is, most of us have been on council 4, if not 6 years. And so we've been talking about the same things, but I forget year over year which projects we're deferring because there's so many. So I think it would be helpful if you can remind us, okay, yeah, we talked about this the last 3 years and it needed to be done 3 years ago and now it actually has to be done. So if, as we have the hearings and we move forward, I think it would be great to be able to speak to that.
Sorry. Okay. Sewer, we just have that pass-through fee increase for the sewer district payments. They've raised their rates.
Of course it is, of course it is.
Pressure irrigation, no real change there. There will be a little bit of growth in the city, so, but no change on the rate. Sanitation, there's a pass-through fee for Robinson that we took into consideration, but both Robinson and Wasatch are increasing.
You're not suggesting change on the rate on any of those?
Sorry, what?
But you're not suggesting a rate change on any of those, even though we're losing
Sewer,
money?
we're passing it through, so there is an increase there of about $3 a month.
Okay, sorry, I apologize for missing that.
Just raise it 10, or raise it another 3.
Yeah. Pressure irrigation is not going up.
Stormwater, not going up?
Storm drain went up $1.60 a month, so 20%.
And these are all pass-through rates. We're getting charged, we're charging, okay.
And then sanitation, depending on how many cans you have, it could be up to 65 cents.
Mother.
And we're only suggesting a partial increase here because of the new converting incentive we're
Yes, we're
getting.
gonna some money about that,
So
right?
we're getting about $17,000 a month in diversion incentive, so we don't think we need to do the increases quite as high.
Thanks, Kaysville, for recycling. Okay.
Yes.
So many of us do.
We're also looking at a grant for recycling carts that we wouldn't know about until next year if we're successful with that. There is the potential for it being a longer-term program, so there could be a potential adjustment down or being able to continue remaining flat.
So I have $17 to $22 overall increase
In total. so
In total.
For utility, yeah.
for utilities per month. That's a lot. I mean, you expect things to go up. Like I know that when I first moved, 10 years ago, my bill was much less than what it is now.
Yeah.
When we first moved to our Hates Creek, it
Everybody's,
was like $25 a year.
And now it's what,
Hates has gone up, everything's gone up. I think that what would be frightening, looking at our math out there and what we just gotta be somehow figure out ways to be creative is, if that were to happen every year, that would suck. And Dean, you're retiring, you gotta start thinking about these things. You're gonna be living on a budget, so you can make some changes right now.
Well, I think if we do this,
Could be on a fixed
if we look at it every year and do it very, very small incrementally, then we don't have these adjustments that look so, you
Right.
know,
I agree.
horrible.
And all at the same time.
Yeah, it's a couple dollars, which, yeah, it's still a couple dollars, but it's much less of an impact.
Yeah, I agree.
If we are consistent.
All right, so,
That's the enterprise, you want to take a break?
yeah, is this a good time to take a quick break? Then we'll kind of circle back to the general fund discussion. Get cut out of the budget,
Get
can
any
afford it.
lesser yourself.
Break time? Can I turn off my mic time?
No, you're always.
So I need to turn my wife Amazon Prime account off.
That's great practice regardless.
It says, well, especially since I'm going to be like Dean and be on that fixed income in a couple months. so.
Yeah, you are. You guys are so old.
I know.
I had a good dry run of this with my wife last night, only was like, no, we can't take that vacation this summer, no, we're not doing this, we got.
Are you serious? Well, you just borrow against your house, and then when you die, or when you retire, you do a reverse mortgage. Listen, the guy on the TV told me this. During the Price is Right, you do a reverse mortgage, and then it'll pay for all your stuff then. Nothing.
That was the first item to go.
They're like, well, at least we got the house. Oh, really? Really? No, Magnum PI convinced me not to give you the house.
Magnum PI.
Tom Selleck's the one that does the commercials for reverse mortgages.
Okay.
It's always on The Price is Right.
I know you're old school, you're watching commercials. I don't know the last time I watched a commercial.
Well, if you watch The Price is Right, you gotta watch it live. Who records The Price is Right?
My kids don't even know what a commercial is, like, what's that? Oh, you mean like an
It's a hassle. Yeah, I did the same thing. But did you get Hulu Live? Yeah, but do you, YouTube TV? Well, you can go on that too and watch all.
That's a, but it saves a lot of money. I mean, my Xfinity, it was over $300 a month.
Yeah.
And having gone to Connect and YouTube TV, it's cut it in half. And
Have someone help you set up the UTV. You should be able to turn on your YouTube TV, and then there's favorites you can have that'll have those live.
it's not just clicking a button. You have to click down, 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 click, click, click. Now I got the passwords all set up where it automatically, the TV just works it out. So. Oh, I don't do that, yeah. Sometimes when the app updates, then you have to relog back in. And then I got to remember passwords I don't remember. It's just,
It's stressful. John?
I mean, sure.
It's 5% below average. So it's not a fair question.
Well,
You get us in the average ballpark, then maybe we can talk.
yeah, but we're never gonna get there by going 4.5 versus 4. We're gonna get there by going 4 and raising just the people who are under. So those are different. When we do straight across the board, that doesn't bring those people up that are under the 5 to up to the 0. We only do that by specifically raising the people who are below. Does that make sense?
I think both are important, though. We can talk about doing what's right for employees per se, but there's also, we need to provide a high level of service. And I think if we start to let our numbers slide, then we start losing. We've got turnover issues. Chief just mentioned about how young his department is. I mean, I think retaining employees is really important in this environment. We're seeing very, very few people apply for jobs like we used to. When we have an opening now, it's a fraction of what it used to be. So I think we just need to do both, honestly, in order to provide the level of service that's expected. And it's just the cost of providing that service.
To the mayor's point, like the new employees are the gift that keep on giving, and then in perpetuity, there will be a cost associated with them. But I hope that's not viewed as a drawback or a drain, because they're also the gift that keeps on giving. The ability that they have to perform work and to perform the service to the community that I not only work for, but I live in. I think that's an important distinction to make, because it's not a net negative.
Yeah.
They're not bringing in revenue, but there is work and service associated with them, and taking into consideration, similar to Chief with the sergeants, the deputy fire chief. Chief Erickson is unavailable or he's out of town. Like, there's zero coverage for the 15-month captains.
Just to give you a comparison, please, so you all know. I'll just take Syracuse. Syracuse has a chief, a deputy chief, a fire marshal, 3 battalion chiefs, and they're just opening up a new station with ribbon cutting on June 20th. Same size city, same response call volume, about square miles, about the same, 10-ish or so. So that's a good comparison. I am the only one without a number 2. Well, you can argue Farmington doesn't have a number 2, but they've got 3 battalion chiefs. And that's leadership that they need there. But I'm the only one in any paid department that doesn't have a number 2 or battalion chief.
Well, the advantage Farmington has is that we cover their stuff.
I knew that was coming. Hey, we're on a call there.
So we're able to use their battalion chiefs, right?
I guarantee you, when you call, they'll be there.
Cost share.
Can
So
I circle
that's-
back to what I was saying, though? Just, you know, maybe I misspoke when I said it was an unfair question, but I think as far as our residents go, it almost is an unfair question, because you're asking one of our department heads to say, do you want to do this or this, which is fair, you can do, obviously, and it's a good data point of information. But as far as our residents go, the way I feel about this is that we are not meeting our obligations to them. This is one of those things, police, fire, these are the things that keep me up at night frequently. And I feel like if we're not covering these things, we're not covering our, to quote John, covering our asses. Like, we're struggling, our departments are struggling, and if we're saying, oh, well, maybe we can just put someone else in, I mean, yes, there's a million creative ways. And I feel like our department heads have probably gone through a lot of the creative options. And if we're continuing to do that, and if we continue to do that, you know, that's our right, our decision to make as far as our budget and balancing that with what we feel our residents need. But I think if we continue to do that, we'll continue to have burnout and turnover. You know, like we talked about that as an issue, and I feel like, that is an issue that we and other municipalities are having. And if we continue to allow the workload to become overwhelming, we'll continue to get what we're getting.
So it was probably not fair for John to ask the chief the question. It's a fair discussion point if you do add it on how you're gonna fund it. To ask the question, what would your folks rather have, that's probably not appropriate, because that doesn't go to the chief, that goes to the council on how do you fund it. And that's what we would need to decide. So, anyways, but 2 weeks ago, the discussion, was the staff said that if we added another position, it really needed to be the assistant attorney for the city. What I haven't heard is, what was the number 2 position that it would have been? Okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, okay, so you were anticipating my question.
Here's what, this is more my rank order. So the department heads all agreed on the top position needs are the assistant attorney, the deputy fire chief, and the 2 sergeant positions. And that's what we talked about 2 weeks ago. I've changed my mind, frankly, on, I used to say, 2 weeks ago, I was saying deputy fire chief and then the 2 sergeant positions. I can argue back and forth on this, but I think one of those sergeant positions is probably my top priority personally after the assistant attorney. And then the deputy fire chief, and then a second sergeant position would be last on that list. And then if we rank ordered, or if I rank ordered, I should say, the buildings, I would put gymnasium and then library and then ops center if I were to add a third. And so, if you want to...
Well, and Nick's not here, so, I mean, we could probably put the...
Hey, listen, I never agreed with that assistant city attorney. No, I'm just kidding.
He didn't show up. I mean, gosh, he got what he wanted.
He's got, Chief and I discussed, and it's really, with us, it's really apples and oranges. We have different jobs. You really can't compare them. We're public safety. It's just as important. We can also have an argument that, what Josh said earlier, a water person. Go ahead and have some crappy water in your city. Let me know how that goes well for you. So, I mean,
Yeah.
they're all just as important.
It really comes down to that, like I said earlier, what's below the line, what's above the line.
State colleges do that. They were still racket stacking to this
Everybody
day
does.
like that.
Everybody
Most
does
people
that.
do.
And from our
Yeah.
previous discussion, I was much more comfortable going back and that we were saying, this is the priority. And I thought, okay, we'll do the assistant city attorney this year. Next year we'll fund another one, the next year we'll fund another one. So we're in a progression of doing those things. If we need to add a water person, that's through the enterprise funds. That's completely different.
I just brought it up as just as important.
I know, but I'm trying to
not
figure
apples to
out,
apples.
I gotta use the whole bucket though. I have to figure out the whole bucket, not just the one. So it seemed like it was, we're doing a tax increase, we're doing a power increase, we're doing a water increase, we're doing increases everywhere. To me, it seemed not responsible to add multiple people on top of all these things. And we keep talking about incrementally. Well, to me, adding one person incrementally made a lot more sense than trying to lump it all in. Because I guarantee you, if we did add the extra sergeant this year, you'll be back next year asking for the deputy chief. You'll be back next year asking for that. And it'll just...
It's still a requirement.
But I would also, and I don't mean this bad in any way, but I also would argue failing to act earlier was not responsible either.
I thought it was like hundreds.
But
We have punted
there's
numbers.
only
So that's, I can argue that too.
There's only so much money, and you can only ask so much of
I
your
agree.
people.
Let's move on to the
Yeah.
next slide maybe. And here's kind of where,
I very much appreciated this one, so thanks.
The discussion is good.
Do you want to talk about that
let's
bottom
go to the,
table?
what's that?
The bottom table first? Or?
Oh, I mean,
I'd put the library below the second police sergeant.
you can argue, I've certainly gone back and forth on these. You cannot quantify these very easily, of course,
And
like
you can't
to
put them
the
in the
point you've
same
made,
bucket.
apples and oranges. But I'm saying, personally, I'd say that sergeant position is really important. The gym is really important. Yeah, after that, it's all these are important. You can argue. But if you move to the next slide, if we did just the extra sergeant, one sergeant, and the gymnasium, that's what would happen to the tax rate to be able to fund that.
That's not where I'm comfortable with the number. I said, we'd move up 8 positions almost in our taxes in the county. That's not comfortable for me at all.
And this is assuming that nobody else moves this year, by the way.
I will say to that point, I get it, Mike, you're like, well, we don't want to be the top. In talking to other cities, we won't be that high. They are all doing
Everybody's
taxation.
moving up.
And so this is based upon last time they had the data. But this year, everybody's redoing it, everybody's doing raises that I'm hearing about. Even cities that I think, well, you have so much money, why do you need to do anything? And they're still also ranking and stacking and reorganizing, so. Believe me, it's a hard conversation. Everywhere I go, we're talking about money and how much everything's costing, and everyone's, so worried, including myself, so.
I haven't seen, how much, was it the back one that you showed how much per household?
Yeah, so the 1.9 is.
Oh, that's annual increase per year, so there's about
$15.
$12 a month?
Yeah, for the current proposed,
That's just for that.
we talked about that. But then with what Jason's proposing for the 1.9, it's $15.71 a month.
Great. We do the gym, but I thought we could pay for the gym with grant.
So that's assuming half of that is using ramp.
Half of that is using ramp?
Yeah.
So you gotta go back to the realization, remember when we said ramp came, the council was not going to dictate where the ramp money went. We would agree with the independent board and what their proposals were.
And the ramp board
And
is,
that's what I hope we keep doing.
Do we own any of our buildings in the city?
what buildings?
Just any buildings?
We own this one.
We own the library building.
Can we reverse mortgage? Can we reverse mortgage?
We own the old fire station.
Can we reverse?
We own the fire station.
We own the fire station.
Can we reverse mortgage the fire station?
I think that's a great idea.
Who are we really leaving?
Can we
it
take
to?
out a home equity loan?
If you'll be the guarantor, I bet we could do that, John.
I mean, part of me kind of wants to say, let's just bite the frickin' bullet and hire the police and the fire and do the thing and just raise it and.
Well, as you talked about doing one this year and the other positions potentially coming back next year, maybe Cole's got parts maintenance workers that he's got tacked onto that. That doesn't mean that there's not other positions, going at it one at a time.
His people don't cost that much.
I think there was like 15 asked for this year?
Yeah, don't forget, that's where we started, was there's been 15
Started with 15.
asks over the years. We narrowed that down to the 4.
Well,
Now
didn't we
we're-
get it down to 8 and then 4?
Yeah. I mean, it's,
Our discussion as department heads was bringing those 4, and as Dean and Jason looked at the sales tax projections being flat, they had to make a cut, take it from the 4 we had planned on to the 1.
Where was your Dean Story wand this year that you usually?
I told you it wasn't fluffed.
No more rabbits.
Yeah.
All the rabbits are gone.
Dude, we put in for a new one, waiting on Amazon.
so again, one sergeant position and the gymnasium, that's going to be a total tax increase of about $15.75 more a month for the average household
Yes,
From where we were.
yes.
from where we
No.
were. And it gets
No,
us.
total. That's total. So
That
it's just another
includes,
$4.
that includes making up for the sales tax also, the deficit, the 1.4 deficit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah.
Yeah?
It's just, yeah,
Yeah?
yeah.
All right, all right.
I didn't understand the question, but yes.
Yeah.
That's just kind of like a cumulative, like, we asked for the 1.4. If you have a sergeant, it's 1.6. If you have the gym, it's 1.9. Does that make sense?
You.
Great.
So that still differs, the deputy fire chief, the other sergeant, the library,
Whoa,
and everything else on that list.
what happened to the Band-Aid?
Yeah, I like the Band-Aid. What about, well, what does the fire chief do to us then if we have that?
2.1.
Huh?
It's the next one, it's the
Next one down,
2.131.
$206 per household over the year.
So $17.19 a month. That's kind of why I like this chart, it
Yeah,
kind
I
of
agree
shows.
with that one. I
Yeah.
like how that
This
is.
one's
Can we
helpful.
pay for it with,
Although you do that, then John's gonna wanna do the library this year too, so.
no, I get it.
Well, that makes it 2.3.
I'm fine with deferring that, but, so when we build a new fire station, how many people are we gonna have to hire for that stuff?
Man,
15?
Shit.
that's another day.
That's where it's not.
That's a
honest.
gift that keeps on.
So the takeaway is things cost more than they used to.
Let's just look right
It's the
here.
news.
I mean, the problem is, so, if we
Stay
could get,
focused.
Sewer went up 120 bucks.
And I'm gonna have to
a year.
unretire.
Now it's $3 more.
the thing is, if we could get Fruit Heights back,
Well, and
that would pay for,
It's all in our contract.
They savings all to that,
Huh?
you know? And we just keep, we have a point where we can cut it off and it's right there.
yeah, that's why it might be, maybe it'd be acceptable for you to defer 1 year just because we might get money back. And that would pay for that, right? And some,
For what?
if we got for your deputy,
What money am I getting back?
if we did,
Who really thinks that's gonna happen?
I don't know.
I mean, like I told the mayor, whatever, I'll
Be
go.
nice.
I'll go wherever you tell me to go.
Same question though for, that I asked, like, I would be comfortable adding more money to fire if you wanted to promote someone. Oh, but then you said the problem is you can't go out and hire somebody.
I'm not saying I wouldn't.
Just because then it'd provide you with somebody that,
But he doesn't have you probably don't have the qualified folks, right, that now.
Yeah, that's
will do that.
what's tough. Like I promoted an engineer to captain. I got 2 engineer openings as we speak. They close next Friday. And I don't,
But you got
just
these
don't
young
have the
captains, you don't think, probably can't, not in a position to promote one of those to a deputy fire chief.
I mean,
Brand new captains, I mean, I think you want them,
you do.
I'm speaking for you, but I mean,
Yeah,
you
you
want them a
do.
little more seasoned.
But some of the time, I mean, I got plenty of guys up in the hill that would apply, for sure.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. But,
Yes.
you know, I got a kid, obviously this is recorded, but I got a kid that, he would do.
Okay.
yeah, until they start trimming their mustaches, they don't quite qualify.
Really?
I think the mustache needs to be longer.
What's the difference between a mustache?
Not qualified.
I didn't even recognize Josh.
Is it a matter of
when they were here.
longevity?
No, certifications.
Certification, so
And
can we do something in that regard to beef up more funding for, to quicken that process?
We've upped our training and education budget. You know, I've talked with Dean about that. We have, but it's about getting the classes. They don't just fall on your lap. And being that they're offered here in this state, I'm not sending you out of state to go get the easy 1 week thing. You gotta earn a little bit. But and to your point, Nate, we do have time frames, like you have to have 4 years as a firefighter or equal equivalents before you can even apply for an engineer. You have to have 6 years as a full-time firefighter before you can apply for a captain. So we do have times on it as well as certifications.
It sounds like you have a lot of staff that's not even nowhere near that.
Well, they got the certifications, they go out, they're eager for training and stuff like that, and they don't have the time to stay.
If we're paying that much in overtime, if we're paying that much in overtime, how much of that overtime could you guarantee would be dropped if X
I
and
can't.
you can't?
Dean and I have talked about that several times, and but that doesn't help with the deputy. Where that overtime would help is getting rid of that part-time position. We wouldn't get rid of part-timers because we need them to cover when our full-time is out and stuff like that. But at least 8 full-timers on each shift would alleviate a part-timer, because all of our part-timers, except for one, work as a professional firefighter somewhere else. Brent Law is our only one, and I say him by name because he's worked for the city for 35 years, and he's been a hell of an employee. He's a big corporate knowledge for us, and he does well.
Hey, Mike, as a council, I guess all as a council, I thought you left. It's like, where are you going? I have a proposal. In the meantime, before we hire an additional deputy fire chief, I propose that we put add a bucket of money that we pay our current chief for doing the job without someone to help him. But it has to be separated from the salary, so we're not increasing like the scale, but it's like a bonus until we hire somebody. I mean, I feel like that would be a fair, way of saying, thank you for doing what you're doing and doing extra jobs.
John, that is very nice. It really is. And at the end of the day, I don't need the money.
Oh, okay.
I need a body.
Oh, that's great.
But we do have to fix our compression, like I said last time. We got a problem. We got captains making X amount, and then me maxed out. We don't have much room for a battalion chief and a deputy further down the road.
Okay.
But I wouldn't pass up.
You're right.
Let's be very clear.
How much of
You just don't need it.
Well, but it's the same for the police too. I was going to say same thing proposal. I would gladly approve, 10, 20, whatever $1,000 that we needed to do to give, chief to say to a police person 3, hey, here's some extra money for doing this extra work. In the meantime, I don't know.
And part of my problem is the burden on the lieutenants, because when all these things happen, we don't have the sergeants there to answer any questions. So our lieutenants who are on salary and who are home on their weekends or whatever, getting constant phone calls from these line guys. And it's not fair to those guys at all, that we're paying them a salary. They're not even getting any kind of extra money for, being available all the time, answering the phone in the middle of the night, all the time. That kind of stuff is.
Yeah, I'm on the
Not
phone probably till 8:39, 7 days a week.
I just tried to pay you more money for that. But hey, Abby, what are you thinking? What are you thinking, Abby?
I mean, I would almost be okay with your idea if I thought that it was like something we could put on for something that we anticipate going away. But doing it now and then spending the money later doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. If we feel like we need the positions and we need the coverage, I don't think we're really doing anyone a service.
No, but my question was more about the positions.
The positions?
Where are you falling right now?
I'm still 5,000% on us needing a police sergeant, at least. I mean, obviously, I agree that we need a deputy chief, but according to this, it's a little further down the line. And it's hard. I had one of my neighbors, I was talking to her after the last budget meeting, and she was like, if you raise my taxes again, I'm going to lose my mind. And it's uncertain times right now for everyone with federal cutbacks, and a lot of businesses are doing massive layoffs. No one is feeling great going into this budget season. But I don't feel like I would be doing the right thing for our residents by saying that I'm okay with not having additional police coverage or additional emergency services if we feel like That like, to me, it's not covering what we need to do. So I definitely agree with that. I'm worried about the gym because it's one of those things where if we miss it, we miss it. And I don't like feeling pressured into like a sales situation, and I don't love that. What I would actually love instead of a gym there would be to do like what do they do in South Davis? Like a recreation district. But I mean, that's who knows how many years down the line. So is this what we have to do until, or if something like that happens? I don't know. But there's a ton of factors going into each one of these decisions, you know? But yeah, so I mean, I guess that's where I am. I mean, obviously we could all talk about this all day. I could talk about this all day, but I will not bore you all. But just to say that I think we need the police sergeant. If we feel like we want to move forward on the gym, I'm okay with that. And I feel like the deputy fire chief, I mean, chief puts in so much time. It's not really, I mean, you know, we talk about not being fair to our residents, but it's also not fair to our residents to put people on duty who are tired or exhausted. And not that I'm saying any one of our officers are going to make bad decisions, but people get compromised when they're operating under suboptimal, I guess, situations. So yeah, if we feel like chief is being overworked, then even though it hurts, it's our responsibility to solve that issue and not kick it down the line. I don't know. Those are kind of my 2 cents.
So for today, you know, this is again a tentative budget we're putting together, and some of these numbers are going to change. Within the next week or two, we'll get the actual projected cost for the gymnasium, and that might be a lot different. Hopefully it won't be a lot more, but I think for today, for placeholders, this is what it is, of course, and I guess we're just looking for a direction for right now, and then we'll revisit this when we get to the tentative budget, and you'll have an opportunity to rehash some of these numbers once we get some updates. But I guess the question today is the council comfortable with the gymnasium as proposed in the tentative budget and the sergeant position? And I don't know if we need a roll call vote on the sergeant. Do we start with the gymnasium, like roll call vote, and see who wants to put that in the budget?
Sure.
I mean, that's,
Yeah. Which one are we putting them in order? Are we doing sergeant first and then gym, or both?
I mean, I guess both need to be voted on.
just said basically sergeant position and gym, right?
Yeah, mostly sergeant
Except for
position
you
and
wish.
kind of gym.
Yeah, we wish. And Cole, maybe you could just quick, for the gym's sake, it's pretty critical to your.
It's now, yeah, it's, yes.
Okay.
It's a now or never. We either partner with the school district or we don't.
No,
If
but
we don't,
what I'm saying is like not having, like that's been a big issue.
it's been a huge issue because we're continually getting squeezed in the current schools. We own 0 gyms. We own 0 recreation indoor space as a city. Everything we do is 100% relying on.
So not only does it, if we were to pack out, not only is it like, now we don't have as many gyms, but also then we're still coming to the school district and saying like, please can we use your schools? And they're like, F you didn't even contribute to.
We already, the city already backed out at Centennial at the last minute.
Yeah.
Which soured the school district a lot, so.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't like the fact that it's the pressure, but it is what it is. I mean, this is when they're doing the project,
And we don't really have to pay them back for like a couple of years, I thought they said.
Well, we have to bond for it, either way.
We can't pay it over 30. Isn't there a cost to use the gyms at the school?
we have to pay custodial services.
Custodial fee, okay.
So when it comes to the gym, I have never been sold on it. I don't even think I don't understand.
It has an indoor track, indoor walking track, which people really like.
Just a lot of money. But could you just kind of explain to me, like, how often will it be used, what programs?
So currently, it would be used every single evening and weekends, Saturdays. So it's junior jazz basketball. This is the only indoor program that we currently run, but it's also, we don't have the ability to run an indoor men's league or an indoor volleyball league that's co-ed or anything. We don't have the ability to run any adult programming.
Do we have pressure to?
We do. We have a lot of things. So, Farmington takes a lot of that pressure away. Layton City takes a lot of that pressure. But those residents are participating in their programs. So we're not offering those programs because, one, we don't have the ability to offer those adult programming that we could offer. There's just a tons of different options that you can offer in a space that you control. The school district, we don't have opportunity to get into the schools other than during basketball because they're so overused as it is with all of their programming. So we're continually getting squeezed in our availability that we can use. So we've had to cut these. A few years ago, we had to cut our men's basketball program because there's no longer offered in the schools. So I think it's a community thing. You know, Layton cities, they're the ones that really champion this partnership with the school district because it serves a good purpose. Schools use it during the day, which is when they need it. The city uses it at night. So Layton City doesn't have a recreation center. They partner with the school district on Shoreline, Legacy, Central Davis, doing the same concept. So a lot of it's indoor programming. They have a track that runs around the top that would be open to residents during the city's hours.
Track, so like our elderly residents that want to walk, will they be able to walk all day?
No, they wouldn't be able to use it during school hours because the school has to have controls during their school hours.
What about the summer?
The summer's different. The summer would be different. So potentially, I mean, you'd have to look at how it's staffed. You know, it's just not open to the public. There has to be a staff there. We're proposing to do that with just administratively part-time supervisory staff that the programs would pay for.
And I can't give you actual numbers because I don't know them for sure, but I can tell you that Farmington's, I think, was about 18 million, wasn't it? 18 million to build their little rec center.
Mm-hmm.
Which
It's only
is,
2 courts, right?
it's about 3 basketball.
Yeah.
But the point is like the fact that the school district uses it in the day and we get a night. If you go into Farmington Gym during the day, like right now while school's on.
It's empty.
It's an echo building. You just walk in and you might see 3 or 4 people in that building all day long. And so to get a gym that we can use in the evenings and on Saturday
Big deal.
at that cost would be.
It's a 50-50 with the school district and the city. So
Yeah, so I mean, it's a significant reduced rate to get.
But there's things that we could offer that we just can't now because we don't have the space. You know, you could offer, you know, yoga classes, and you could offer some sort of, you know, senior programming that we just can't do because we don't have the space. So
Cole, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you do have a volleyball league, each team has to pay so much money. Right?
yes.
So you do, it's not all expenditure, there is
No,
revenue.
there is revenue. So the revenues would pay for, a lot of things.
I think this is a safe bet too in terms of even if someday down the road there is a recreation district formed for North Davis County, because Farmington and Layton and West Point now and other cities already have these gymnasiums in their cities, I don't see that rec center building, if one's ever built, being this. It'll probably be more of an aquatic center, racquetball courts, climbing wall, those sorts of amenities as opposed to gymnasiums, which again, most cities already have these. So we see this as a long-term benefit, and you always see that recreation facilities are something that residents rank really high in terms of their wants. So we see this serving a real desire for this community.
If we had any surveys go out.
When we did the Y2K, the number one thing was a rec building, wasn't it?
It was,
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good
aquatics
reminder.
and rec, yeah.
In 2021, we did a survey with Y2 Analytics, and the Recreation Center was ranked as #1. And even interesting fact, when they asked, would you be willing to pay an additional property tax, they all said yes, up to, you know, like $100 or something, I think was the number that was out there. But so.
What's your vote, Nate, on the 2 things?
I'm yes on a sergeant position, and the gym, I'm a yeah.
I know the council's talked about
I guess.
wanting to show something that's exciting to the residents. If we're gonna do a tax increase, like, don't just do the boring, say boring, but absolutely essential stuff. But this is one of those things where I think you could at least say, hey, look, we're doing something exciting that's gonna be new and a benefit that you haven't had before.
And it would be branded as the Kaysville City,
Yes,
you
it
know,
will.
Good point.
Yeah.
Kaysville City. It wouldn't be Kaysville Junior High's, and the city's part of it, so it would be branded as Kaysville City's.
Can I just add to that as well? I mean, that's a really good point, showing residents what we're actually trying to do to improve recreation and whatnot. But I feel like over the years, Kaysville, previous councils, long before us, have kind of slow-walked a lot of these things, tax increases and this and that. But we are really dealing with the problems of councils over a decade ago, right? And I just don't want to be that same council or a new council 10 years from now, it's going to have more problems. And so I support that sergeant position as well as the position that Nick needs. And I also think we have a revenue issue that we really need to figure out as a city. How can we encourage businesses to move here and get more money? And so I would like to see more of a robust effort, whether we, I don't know, hire a college student part-time that's going into marketing kind of help or something. We need more revenue.
How much?
Potential there.
Liquor stores.
So I think you need to talk about that a lot more as a city.
I agree.
Yeah, I like that,
Open
Nate.
up bars in the town?
No, liquor stores, I think they bring in like,
And,
they charge all kinds of.
to your point, Nate, Cole brought up something really good in a couple meetings ago. He said if the city is not willing to invest in itself, it's kind of a hard ask to have other business owners also spruce up their places, invest in yourself. And so I know we're not talking about the library building specifically right now, but that's part of, this is our downtown. We keep focusing, CRA, community, Main Street, re-envision. We've been talking about it. I've been on Planning Commission 2 years, Council 2 years, Mayor almost 4 years, talking about the same, Main Street, what are we going to do? And so, to your point, in order to get those kinds of businesses, they want to see people investing in their own city. They want to see the city invested, people excited, people having a lot of energy about what's going on. That comes from having adequate staff who are doing superior jobs and not totally getting destroyed in doing it. It involves sprucing up buildings that we as a community own and investing in community spaces like the rec center. And so I think we just need to get better at talking about it. And maybe we can find an intern that will help us with some graphics and stuff, because that's exactly the right thing. I think we need to definitely keep the momentum, because we've got good momentum right now.
Absolutely. And going out and recruiting businesses or just trying to.
Yep.
Maybe we can get Trader Joe's, oh, wait, never mind.
Yeah.
There's so many other businesses that are just as
Too soon?
lucrative as Trader Joe's.
Tammy, we skipped you, maybe we need to
I
have.
talked the whole time.
No,
Just vote, I
but
think.
did you say what you want for the two?
Yeah, absolutely. I support both of them. I also support a deputy fire chief, but I understand. And the reason I would support 3, I know no one else has said that, is only because we have deferred hiring new positions for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I think that would just get us up to baseline and then moving forward. But I realize if that's not what everyone else wants to do, I won't.
I was gonna say, my support was gonna be to also for a deputy fire chief, but mostly because I've counted the votes and I know it won't go through, but then I can get good graces with the guy across the.
Well, where's that pay raise coming?
So I like the idea of the straw poll, but I'd like to do them individually. I'd like to hear what the other councils, I want to hear it, I want it to go on record. I mean, if you're asking me a tax increase that would include the gym, I would say yes. The sergeant, I would say no.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing.
I know, but I haven't
The only
heard,
person-
you've been lumping them together, and I don't.
And you skip
I want them
me.
individually.
We skipped you, I'm
I
sorry.
want to hear.
Just because I'm not running, you're skipping me,
I
right?
hear individually.
I would actually support the police sergeant, I would support the gym, and I would probably lean towards a yes on the deputy fire chief. And I guess some of that, I've got a son-in-law who's a firefighter in Salem, and I know what they have there, and the words earlier on where we're at, and same with the police and where we're at compared to different cities. We've shortchanged ourselves, and we're playing with fire. I mean, figuratively, on different areas. And anyways,
Thank you.
that's me.
Are we going back around or?
Yes, we're going back
Okay,
around.
I'll be after you.
I-
Oh, I already, yeah.
You good?
You have to say it again.
Yeah, you have to say it again.
For Mike.
Yes on a sergeant, yes on the gym, and I'm open to deputy fire chief. But I'm not quite sure.
I would say yes on sergeant, yes on gym, and yes on fire chief, and just add that although, you know, I do feel some discomfort at raising, not some, quite a bit of discomfort at raising taxes that high, my level of discomfort is much higher with the things I feel like we'd be leaving behind if we put it off for a year. Like, if we put it off for a year, that's another full year without that police coverage, without that fire.
We've already put it off for 2 years.
Well, I didn't feel great then
Or
either,
maybe
so that's why I want to do it. So yeah, I'm yes on all three.
What I sold you, by the way. Yes on all three.
Ooh, even when the votes counted.
Hmm? Wow. I know.
This is my con.
Could have changed, I know.
Green light, we're good.
I think that's everybody's, yeah? Okay, thank you.
Fire Chief, Sergeant, and
Great input.
Jim.
Do you want to touch base real quick on, okay, we talked about health insurance last time, but no changes there, no changes here either from what we talked about last time, unless anyone has any questions. Again, this would be the 3% merit like we've done, 2.5% COLA.
Now, that's one thing that was different, I thought, than what we, like, I talked to a lot of people, and I know this is super uncomfortable for all of the employees in the room, but a lot of the people down at the league were doing, that I talked to, were doing 4.5 total.
We know Riverton you'd mentioned.
Riverton, and I talked to, I think Layton, 4.5. And again, I'm not saying, I just, like, we're talking 5.5. I, again, from like the year prior, I would like to see what, if we did 4.5 or 5 or 4.75 or whatever, if we could not take that money that we've put into this proposed budget and bring the people that are below, either below, well, no, this would include getting everybody that's below 5% up to 5, right?
Correct.
But to get the people that are within the 5 up to 2 or something like that, like, I'd rather spend that money getting those people that are down, especially if all the other cities are only doing 4.5. That make sense?
Yes.
I don't know if you want to speak to that too, that Kim surveyed the other cities on what they're doing. It's hard to compare sometimes because, like you brought up Riverton, and Riverton this year did 4%, but we do COLA every single year. Mm-hmm. We call it COLA, sometimes they call it market, it's really the same thing. We're trying to get people up with the market. And we do it every year again. Riverton doesn't do it every year. They did it last year. They looked at market last year, but this year they just did merit. That's what that 4% is. Mm-hmm. Last year they did 6% all in. I think the year before was 7%, if I'm recalling correctly. So they're not doing it every year, but they're kind of making bigger leaps every other year, or not every single year, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas ours is kind of more steady.
Because we did, what did we do? Did we do 8 or 6 or something? I'm trying to remember the 2 years before. I thought we went like 8.
Proposed 8, and then we used that. We ended up doing 6% across the board, and we used that 2% for those that were off market.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm fine. I guess I'm fine leaving it now, but I would rather know how much it would cost us to bring.
What percentage?
Isn't it about 60,000?
No, I see the half. Oh, you could tell us
For
how much it would
1%.
cost us to bring the people that are below 0 to 0 or to 2 or
Right.
to.
If you want to.
Yeah, that would be nice to know as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
Are you guys okay with learning that?
Absolutely.
We're just happens to have it right here.
Huh? She's a whiz.
be another 325,000
$325,000 to bring everybody
to zero.
to zero. And you're saying 0.5% accounts for 65 grand is all.
For COLA, yeah.
So if it's 325,000, would we just, if we wanted to do it, would we just not do the market adjustment and take that? And is that what you're proposing, John?
No, I think they would freak out on us if we did that.
It's
But,
the same number. I thought I'd ask.
yeah, that'd be tender for some people. But no, I mean, again, maybe we can't cut all this out in one thing, but if we went to 4.5 instead of 5.5, that'd give us 130,000. We could maybe bring those people up to 3.
65,000 for rooms.
Right.
No, it's 65,000 for 0.5%. So if we went to 4.5 instead of 5.5, that would mean we'd have 130 grand to bring those people that are at 5, everybody that's at 5 to 3, and we would change our rule to 3, and then maybe next year we could change it to 0. The question is, by dropping that percent, how many people, I think to Jason's point, will now fall below because of everybody else's increases? And that's the question that I don't know.
Or are you just suggesting let's take 0.5% off and add that to adjusting those and see how far it goes?
Yeah, half or, yeah,
Okay,
half
take
or
a
1%, half or 1% off
So
the
go to
total.
4% instead of 4.5?
No, it's 5.5 right
It's
now.
5.5 right now? Okay, it's 5.5, go to, yeah, 5.5, so go to 4.
I was saying, should we go to 4.5 or 5 and use that money? I'm not saying change the money, I'm
Change
just
the money,
saying
you're just saying,
use
see
it
how many we can do like you did last
to
year.
snuff those people up.
Drop the percent and brought the people close.
And whatever that ends up being, that becomes our new rule. And eventually,
Merit, but it's not gonna, other positions won't fall.
well, the idea is that other positions might fall behind other cities. If other cities are doing 5.5 and we do 5, then those positions,
Well, it's if the other cities are adjusting the market adjustment.
that's correct.
If we keep that market adjustment, we just keep it with the merit. Should go
Yeah. I know it's not great news for everybody that works for the city in the room, and I hate suggesting it, but I also hate these people. We're giving them that extra 1%, but they're still underpaid. There's a secret combination meeting going on here behind you. I don't know what's being discussed back here.
I'd be willing to give up my merit increase if it meant that people in my department and in other departments were able to keep this 5.5.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, I think that's big.
When we interviewed when Shane left, Chief Ober, one of his interview questions that he asked everybody was, what's more important, the resident or a staff member? And Jason was the only person who responded this way, but his response was staff. And it sounds bad, but Jason qualified the answer with, if you take care of your people, they take care of your residents. And I can't believe in that enough with the human beings that we have here. It is the gift that keeps on giving, and they are the gift that will keep on giving. We talk about the high expectations. We talk about the high expectations that people have here, and I couldn't agree more that the level of service in Kaysville City has risen just in the short time that I've been here to witness. Staff has grown, and the abilities of staff to serve and the things that staff are doing and how they're doing it has improved dramatically. And that doesn't have anything to do with me. That's just in the time I've been here to witness that. I do that in a heartbeat. I give up my COLA, I give up my merit increase. These are phenomenal people. And I don't think at all for a second that council doesn't recognize how phenomenal they are, but, yeah.
Chief, isn't that helpful? Isn't that what you're asking for, is that our expectation has been below 5? That if we bring that gradually up, that's a good thing?
I think it helps. I think it does.
I think
Here's the good thing, I'll be perfectly honest with you. We've created a pretty good culture. I don't have people trying to leave. I don't have that problem. I got young kids that are eager. They don't mind working overtime. They have young families, so I'm in a fortunate situation. But when is that going to end?
So that's, are you guys okay if I propose the idea of looking at changing the citywide market adjustment to 1.5%, seeing where that $130,000 would take us to bring other employees up?
And I would adjust that, I would let them, do they want to do the market-wide adjustment at 1.5 or keep it at 2.5 and do the merit at 2, whichever, they understand those two pots better, which is going to adjust the more people.
That's what I was gonna say, because the problem with watering down the market is then the pay scale gets watered down. And so we're less comparable on paper with other cities. And so if officers are looking at, well, these guys top out at 45 and we only top out at 40. That's what messing with that market.
That's what I remember from last year.
So
The
if we can
discussion
keep
was
our market,
We've got a lot of employees who are maxed out, where merit increase
doesn't do
anything for them, and all they're looking at each year is that market.
But how much do we get from changing the merit from 0 to 3 to 0 to 2? Don't we only get like, don't we only get like 40 grand out of that or something like that?
Let you guys make that decision. I think that's a good idea.
Chief, I know when we were talking yesterday, I asked you how's morale in the police department, and one of your responses was when we play around with the citywide market adjustment and water that down, traditionally before we'd often follow URS or what the inflation is doing, but if we reel back from that tends to have an impact throughout the department. So I feel like if we focus on a few of the positions that are below, the average, that helps those positions, but then I don't know if the offset is even worse with now you're affecting everybody, including all the guys that are topped out by watering down the market. So
we could do 0 to 2 merit, 0 to 2% merit, see what that 1% pays us out. It may only pay us out 40 grand per half, or 80 grand for 1%, and use that to bring those people back up.
Here's the thing about that.
Are you feeling okay with keeping everybody at keeping the 5% under? I was under the impression that was a big deal, but maybe it's not.
I think
that is huge.
It is a big deal.
I think it is, but it's kind of like robbing Peter to pay Paul, I guess. I don't know if it's like, is fixing the 5% issue, 5% below issue, if the fix is to water down the citywide market or the merit, I feel like that might potentially do more damage than fixing I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but
I think seeing 5.5 is 5.5 high or average, or what's everybody doing right now?
It's more than most cities are doing based on the conversations we had with them.
And again, we just only had conversations with a few cities. So.
To Riverton as well.
Huh?
They were 6% last year, 7% the year before, so.
But, and Riverton, we want to be Riverton 2.0. I'm just saying, like, what is everybody else?
So John, 1% on the merit at roughly 80,000-ish range?
I don't know. I just guessed.
Just kind of talking about
That's 3%, so a third of it, 85.
Yeah. I'm much more inclined to tinker with the merit, not the market adjustment.
Okay, I'm good with that. I'm good with that. I just want to bring these, I guess I just want to bring, and I hope that everybody else, all the other employees would feel the same way that Josh does. It's like, man, Joe Paul over there is getting paid less. And
Do you understand, the meeting that the two chiefs were having were to, are we gonna SWAT your house, or are we gonna have a fire issue?
they should be like freaking dropping money off. I've done everything for them.
I mean, COLA merit affects everybody, and the compensation study to get everyone to zero is 29 more people. Just to put that out there.
But if we threw another 80,000, didn't you say it was $80,000-ish?
A third of 230, so.
I don't know, I'm pretty good at math, right? So 80. If we threw another 80 grand at it, maybe we'd be up in like the 3% below
Yeah.
range or something.
3% was about 108.
Okay. I don't know. Obviously,
I will
the
just,
city manager is not happy with that, so we gotta figure
I mean,
out.
it goes back to his point of robbing Peter to pay Paul, right?
yeah, and you guys, we have worked really hard over the last couple of years to get people to a better place. I think messing with this kind of, it erases a lot of the good work.
Messing with the doing 5.5? But where did the 5.5
I
even
don't know
come
where the
from?
5.5 actually came from.
That's
but
my
I-
thing.
But I'm
It's
just
like-
saying, I just think we've got a really good trajectory now to get us where we really feel like we should have been. This year's gonna catch us up to where we probably should have been closer to. So are you guys okay with 5% or 5.5? Is that 0.5% gonna?
No, 10.
That's not one they're gonna
I
make.
mean, we need to know.
We
need to
probably
know.
have to make the decision.
We've tried to be consistent with merit, so employees know that if they continue to perform successfully at Kaysville City, they're guaranteed a certain amount each year. And you start messing with that every year, and I think that creates a
That
problem
adds to
for you
the
because there's
stability.
so much uncertainty. And I mean, when we talk to Riverton, for example, they've got two pay plans. They've got one for public safety and one for regular employees. And their public safety pay plan is a 4% increment each year. So police officers know that if I continue to do my job, I'm going to get 4% each year. So there's some consistency there, some uniformity there that you start missing with merit every year. I think that creates problems for you.
Well, if they don't move up on their pay plan, then we run into issues where they're being paid less than other cities. So this year, a couple months ago, we lost an officer to Davis County Sheriff's Office. They paid him $3.50 more an hour than what I was paying him. And I can't begrudge the kid for making that
That's
choice
$7,000 a year.
if he can better his situation. But when we don't, if we're not going to give merits, that's what we're going to do to our people. And there's a cost. So then when we lose this kid, then we're having to pay overtime to fill shifts. We're having to hire somebody. We're having to send them back through the academy. And that's going to continue for months and months and months. Some equipment you can't transfer over. Those uniforms are gone. The vest is probably gone. And there's costs associated with not keeping up with the pay plan.
So Dean, if this stays right here, it's what you originally sent us, right?
All right, how about
I say don't leave it alone. I say leave it alone.
How about we leave it alone for now? However, how do you feel about doing this? If you were to look at dropping it 0.5%, I don't care where you pull it from, if it's from the market or from the merit. Sounds like there's a debate there. And send to each of the department heads what that would do for the specific employees.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So that they can then look at that and say, maybe they look at that and they're like, man, that person doesn't, or whatever. But then they could look at that and say, yeah, that would be an I vote for me, because that would give Mary that really could use $6,000 more a year.
Yep. Well, I'm getting a little.
Do you understand what I'm asking?
Well, what am I doing
I'm
at
getting a
that
little
0.5%?
confused because
You follow that, right?
Who am I giving the 0.5% to?
everybody in the
though?
city
No.
eventually tops out, correct? Or not?
Eventually.
Everybody in the city who works here eventually tops out.
On merit. They can't keep
That's what I'm
getting
saying,
merit.
on
Yes,
merit.
yes,
On
yes.
merit. So that, we all know that. You all know that expectation. You will top out at your position. But cost of living goes up constantly. I would much rather, if, as a person who was topped out here for years, get a cost of living increase than to worry about that 3% merit, which I know I'm gonna get. So to me, if you're gonna mess with something, mess with the merit a little bit, because eventually I'm gonna top out anyway, but don't mess with my cost of living, because that's my budget that I have, and that's why my eggs went up, and that's my milk went up. That's my cost of living. I don't wanna mess with that. That should be set, in my opinion.
Well, let me ask you this. What about, as Josh pointed out, we have a lot of people topped out. Take that 3% from those people and see what that looks like and give it to other people. Because I'm topped out.
They don't get it. We don't budget for it.
Oh.
I know, wouldn't that be nice?
So I get what you're saying, but the 0.5%, are you then using that for people below market?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I was saying. And again, we'll leave it here like it is now, but I'd like them to look at if we took 0.5% off of merit,
Sure.
which would be like 40 grand, what that would do for those employees that are below market, and which employees that would affect and how much it would affect them. And then if they look at that and they're like, you know what, those employees are great, but they're not, like,
Sure.
does that make sense?
Or you can look at it more as the positions. Like,
What?
do we rank certain positions, and certain positions are below, are more critical than other positions?
In my experience, every time the employer messes with benefits or pay from what they've done traditionally, even if you can say, hey, we're doing this for this good reason, like we're going to change your health insurance because in the end you're going to actually come out better, or somehow the employees see every change way more negative than what I think is actually happening. And I think the same might be true here where, hey, we're trying to help the guys that are 5% below, and we're going to just shave a little bit off of, and I think that the brain damage of the changes to what we've done traditionally with merit and market, I think are going to be perceived more negatively by and large than any good that comes out of fixing what we're trying to
Okay, but I
fix.
just said, let's just keep it how it is for now, but I'm just curious what those will do. And also, what was the state, what did the state come back with? What's the state doing for their, what's the state doing for their COLA / merit combination to, or
URS was 2.9, social security was 2.5,
URS was 2.9?
I believe so.
For that merit.
Huh?
For COLA.
For cost of living, yeah.
That was in our first.
So can I ask you a stupid question? Is it possible to adjust ranges without adjusting the take home?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So that people aren't hitting the ceiling?
Yeah, if we were to like, hey, we're gonna make a market adjustment to the range, but not have it
I mean, yeah.
be effective, like, you know, I think about the people that are maxed out and
There's a
we're
slide on that one
worrying
from the
about,
14.
hey, getting to zero, man, that's gonna be difficult, but what if it wasn't all hitting right now, but we adjusted the ranges so that people are seeing
And then go
that
down to
ability?
the personnel.
Yeah, because if you had, say it was 3.5% total, but your range never capped out, is that what you're saying?
No, still have it max out at some point, but just move the range to average, but not change necessarily what people are taking home right now, so it's not hitting right now.
Like, would you know how to put that together to show us? Okay.
You know, that's not having necessarily a dollar impact, but it's having a morale impact.
You're talking about those that are under the 5.
Yeah, for positions that are
That would just-
under average, just say, hey, we're gonna move your range to average. That doesn't mean that your take-home is getting changed now, but you've got some wiggle.
I mean, technically, it would allow them to get the merit at that point.
Well, you just don't do it this
Or
year.
yeah, if you just
don't
said,
do it this year.
hey, whatever your calculated 5.5 is right now, we're gonna keep you at 5.5 max.
Yeah, it's,
But we're gonna move your range as
Okay.
well.
Yeah,
hey,
I
you
like,
just
I
don't,
like that. I like
don't
that.
give it to them.
It'll be a problem next year.
What was that?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, it'll hit next year.
Yeah, no, it's gonna hit next year, sure.
Right here,
Uh-huh.
to add another additional 180,000, where does that put us?
Oh,
Where the library would be.
Acting sergeant.
Well, that's what you guys voted
Deputy
for.
fire chief. Well, it was,
I wanna see where it puts me.
we haven't voted on anything yet.
So if we're gonna add the
Mike
first,
just wants to know what kind of sandwich you made him, man, that's all he wants to know.
We haven't voted on anything, this is.
Yeah, but I wanna see where the line, we know where it is if we added the.
oh, sorry, that's what you're asking.
But if we're adding the additional
It'd be
180,000.
.00213, so between Woods Cross and West Bountiful. One up.
Which with everybody else going up, that would probably adjust, is what you're saying. Awesome.
Most of them are.
So, make a motion to close the meeting, or what?
All right, so I think we got the input we need. We'll bring back a
I guess,
tentative budget.
do we need more meetings before May 14th?
Is,
I'm totally.
Do you think we should have another meeting before?
Not on a Friday though.
We shut these off?
Hold on. Oh, we're not closed. Oh, we're not closed.
I'll make a motion that we close the meeting.
Wait, we just need to answer this question,
Oh,
please.
I withdraw my motion.
Are we having any more meetings before May 14th?
right now, the tentative budget's gonna be
Or
based
15,
on
whatever.
adding the deputy fire chief sergeant in the gym and keeping the 5.5% COLA / merit. But things are gonna change with the gymnasium proposal and other things that we'll continue to fine tune and bring back numbers, but
Tentatively plan on another meeting.
Well, maybe-
These new numbers coming in.
Can I make a motion? Can I make a proposal? Why don't we have, since we won't have any of that information by May 15th, would be my guess, right?
we may have the gymnasium number, hopefully have the gymnasium number by May 15th, but that's not a for sure thing.
Because have we ever had meetings after we passed the tentative budget?
Oh, sure, yeah.
We have meetings.
Huh?
That's typically when we have most of our meetings, that's the way.
Like yeah, I would say we do it after the tentative. I mean, I feel like we'd just be bouncing.
So just add the 3 and then send the information of those 2 questions. Great.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, because of the market adjustments, we have individual positions that were falling well below the 5%.
We'll get
We
some
had to bump up. to get
input and then we can have
But
meetings.
didn't we do that last year?
We did, but then they immediately fell behind again.
I'll make a motion that
There
we
was
close
just
the
a ton of
meeting.
movement this last year.
Are you done?
I'm done, yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
Do we need a second?
Yeah.
All in favor?
We just had several positions in the fire out in the market that just, even this last year, with last year's adjustment, we still, it's just becoming crazy with what other cities are paying their fire.
I mean, I don't